For being late. Just had a closed session that ran a little over. We'll have a call to order, and we'll have a roll call, please.
Mayor John Harabedian.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem John Kaposha.
Here.
Council members Rachel Arizmendi.
Here.
Denise Del Mar. And Jean Goff.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As many of you know, and you were there, we had our recognition dinner this past week for all of our volunteers, commissioners, committee members, and some of our star employees. And it's one of my favorite nights of the year because, you know, we as a council and as a family, a city family, get to come together and really say thank you to all of you in the crowd and all the staff here in City Hall and those folks at home who are watching for everything that you guys do to help us run this great city. And tonight we're saying goodbye to one of our prized employees and one of our family members. But I think I want to take this time in my invocation just to say thank you to everyone who wasn't there, who didn't get a chance to see it. We discussed up here, a couple of us on the council, just how powerful it is to sit there and listen to all the accounts of the folks, all the volunteers, the employees, and what they do on a daily basis. And really, we would love to actually film it and show everyone, because I think it really makes everyone really appreciate just how special this place is and how special our community and our citizens and our employees are. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to the volunteers. Thank you to the residents, and thank you to the employees. And Danny, we're going to thank you in just a bit. So thank you very much. Oh, is it? Yeah. Madam City Attorney, can we have a report out of closed session?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The council met in closed session with its labor negotiator to discuss the status of negotiations with two unrepresented groups. Direction was provided to the labor negotiator, and no action was taken.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, it ends up that Director Castro will be here. Originally, we thought he was going to be on city business at the next council meeting, but he will be able to be here, so his certificate is for your next council meeting.
Oh,
We did have it on here, so it's not your,
are you sure, Danny? Are you okay with that? I'm good with that. You don't have family here or anything?
No.
Okay.
no,
We're
right.
Danny, we still love you, and thank you very much. Okay, that's fine. Everyone have a chance to review the agenda, I assume. Can we get an approval?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
There's none opposed. That was unanimous. And then the minutes. We had 3 sets, I believe.
I have one little change. Give me a minute to find it, but it's in the first one. And I was really talking about butterflies, not flies. I think Sierra Madre has enough flies.
Oh, okay.
Which meeting? Do you remember which date?
I'll find it for you in just a second here. Just
While
take
he's looking, I have one for the 9:30 minutes on page 6, line 9. The city council has to be fiscally responsible and accountable. We have a little Y that we don't need.
Line 9.
Mm-hmm.
It says the city council has to be fiscally responsibility and accountable. It's actually paragraph 9,
Oh, okay.
to be responsible. Thank you. That was it.
Okay, Madam City Clerk, mine was on the September 23rd minutes, and it's at the top of page 22 of 23. It says flies, birds, etc. That's should be butterflies,
22 of 23. And which paragraph?
right at the top.
We like flies.
Mm-hmm. Flies are fun.
Oh, fly. I see butterfly. Thank you.
Any other changes in the minutes?
Yeah, I have one on September 23rd minutes, page 15. I believe that's right. Top, very second to the top line. After strike alternate, just put I'm not. And then between contracting out, we are. And then after police, our. I'm not assuming,
Read the sentence then, please.
hold on. Wait, I'm not assuming we are contracting out our police department.
Assuming we are contracting out our.
Right.
Okay.
And then on page 8 of the September 30 minutes. Oops. Third paragraph from the bottom, where it says, wait a minute. Before the word police, on the second line of that, some people feel should be in there. Some people feel police are giving too many tickets.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
you.
On the minutes? Okay, please. Yeah.
I realize that these are action item minutes type of thing, but on page 2 of the October 7th special meeting of the Sierra Madre City Council, I just want to correct something because I did not say that Athens had a choice of cans. I just said that there were a choice of cans.
Mm-hmm.
That Athens, in fact, was only offering us the large cans.
Has a choice of cans, and then I say small or large.
But Athens does not have that. They only are offering us
Oh.
the large can.
Okay,
But that it was available out there in the real world. And I also remember the mayor saying that he thought we should look into it.
I talked to him. I was going to tell, yeah.
I brought you some literature, and I brought it just for the mayor
Great.
and for the city manager, because I realized this is sort of your purview. And I highlighted the size cans.
Perfect.
I thought we should be able to choose from. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other changes in minutes? If not, I'll take a motion to approve all three at once, if that's okay.
Move to approve?
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
And thank you, City Clerk, for getting all
Yeah,
those done.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of work.
Mayor and City Council reports. Councilmember Del Mar, we'll start with you first.
Yeah, I just want to say that I did go to the honorees dinner, and it was very nice. Thank you to the staff who put that on and all the hard work, and to see our volunteers. And that's all I have to report.
Councilmember Goss.
Let's see here, check my notes. Been a little bit busy since the last general meeting. Attended the Senior Community Service Commission as liaison there, and they're doing some good stuff. We'll be talking about them later tonight. Along with Council Members Mendy and Mayor Pro Tem Capochi, attended the San Gabriel Valley Water Forum, which was very, very educational. I think we all came away with some very useful information from that. This past Saturday was just really overjoyed to see the turnout for the library open house. It was just a fantastic event, very, very well received by the community. That's always good to see. And I was also at the Honors Awards dinner, and that's, I think everything the mayor said about it is very true. It's really a great opportunity to really see people actually get recognition for all the great things they do for our town. That's my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Arizmendi.
Similarly to the rest of my fellow council members, attended the honors dinner. Thank you, Mayor. I think you captured the essence of that night. It was really a wonderful evening, and it was gorgeous, too, to say the least. San Gabriel Valley Water Forum, very informational. I think a lot more information about water than I ever imagined that I could learn in one day. National Public Lands, I know we had a celebration of sorts on the 27th to Caroline Brown. Congratulations, and to the rest of the volunteers on that day. And I think, Councilmember Goss, you just mentioned library, correct?
Open house, yeah, you were there too.
Great, open house. And then I just wanted to close by announcing, I know Bears the issues of Bears have come up a couple of times in these last council meetings, and Assemblyman Chris Holden will be holding a public safety forum on the 23rd, and if folks are interested in that, I'd be happy to share that. But it is on the 23rd at Monrovia Public Library. Might be of interest for us to ask him and or his staff to come to Sierra Madre too, because it's not just Monrovia that is dealing with bear issues.
give us a time for that.
It is 7 p.m. at the Monrovia Public Library.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment on the water forum. I came away with two big things that made a big impression on me. One was with regard to public safety and earthquake preparedness. And the quote was, "Any earthquake that is big enough to start a fire is big enough to break your pipes." So just, again, emphasis that we all should be prepared. And I know when we had our little public safety night here, there was a vendor that has a place on Rosemead that sells water tanks, and I haven't bought mine yet, but I'm going to. I think it's just very important that we all do what we can to keep enough water in case of an emergency. The other was with regard to how hot it's been and how much water is being consumed. We've done okay as far as conserving water, but actually after hearing a presentation, it made me realize how the challenge that we have in front of us, because what's different about the current drought is that it is much hotter. On average, it's been about 5 degrees hotter this summer, and using that term evapotranspiration, as the temperature goes up, your plants need even more water. So the fact that we've been able to reduce consumption while it's been hotter is really commendable. And I do know that everybody is suffering over this, but I just wanted to make that point because sometimes I wonder, why can't we save more? But that's a big reason why we can't. And by the way, the picture doesn't look good going forward. There are many presentations on what the models have shown for the future, and for the next couple of years, it could be very, very severe. So again, just want to pass that along. Thanks.
Thank you. And I just had one thing to talk about. Caroline Brown had brought up the bear can issue and trying to get smaller cans from Athens, and I did talk to them, and they are open to doing that, and we just need to discuss further, some options with them, but they're receptive, and so I'll talk to you probably directly, and so that we can get the expert on the case. But if anyone is having trouble with their bear cans, if they're too small, hopefully in the near future too big. We'll hopefully have some smaller options soon. And with that, I will open it up for public comment for items not on the agenda.
Also, we're going to have discussion of bears and upcoming agenda.
That's right. Yeah, and as Councilmember Goss reminded me, we are going to have a discussion on bears on an upcoming agenda. Madam City Manager can remind us when that's going to be. And speaking of bears, Mr. Hood.
Gary Hood, 465 North Baldwin, and the bears. And I made this brochure up looking for permission to post this around trails and where the people are walking. This is just a rough. I know there's probably a requirement for a permit to put signs out, so I'm hoping that I can get approval. What I'm saying here is due to fires and a 3-year drought, cities are experiencing an increase in the bear population. Bears have been spotted as far away as a mile into the cities, foraging for food and water. Bears have been spotted at all hours of the day and night. If you are out walking alone or with a group, it is advised to make as much noise as possible so as not to startle them. For the most part, bears are shy and try to stay away from humans. Bears are most dangerous when you are between the mother and her cubs, when they are eating, or when just surprised by your presence. If approached by a bear, never run from them. Try to look big, put your hands above your head, and yell as loud as you can and slowly back away. On Thursday, October 23rd at 7 p.m. in the Monrovia Public Library, there will be a public safety forum regarding bears in your backyard. If you live around here or walk around here, it is advised to attend this meeting for the latest information update. So I would like permission to, with refinements from the city attorney or whoever, to post these in places where people are gathering to walk up into the mountains.
And that's above my pay grade, Madam City Manager. Okay, great.
We can't take action on something
Yeah.
that hasn't been agendized.
But it seems great. Yeah, I mean, I think it's,
But between Public Works and Police, we can work with Mr. Hood.
all right.
Does that mean that I can
You'll
If
deal with
approved, you
staff.
won't charge me to post these?
Oh, I
We'll work
think
with-
that makes sense to me. It's public service that you're doing, so
Thank you very much.
thank you.
And the council's scheduled to talk about bears November 13th.
Thank you, thank you. November 13th, Bears.
You might Caroline Brown, you might wonder why I chose this particular color shirt to wear tonight. But I want you to remember about what I'm to say, and I will hand out the literature that we are using as Sierra Madre CERT shakeout observation this coming Thursday. Whatever date is picked, that same time of the day is picked. So 10, the month of October, or
Thank you, sir.
16, the day of the week, the 16th, 10:16 a.m. We are going to be doing this following exercise, which we did a couple of years ago. It's not exactly a big planned exercise, but with good reason. Earthquakes are not planned. This exercise is because of the date. And we're just asking everyone that's a CERT volunteer to do the following. So wherever you are at 10 a.m., and that could be anybody that's listening to my voice right now, that actually says 10 a.m. That was from 2 years ago. We'll have to change that. 10:16 a.m. We want people in their neighborhoods who are CERT members who are at home to actually just go make a quick check around and just talk to people. The lack of preparation is astonishing. You know, after the earthquake, people go, oh. And in fact, after a recent earthquake, I think it was in Orange County somewhere, the earthquake preparedness group that's down there on Rosemead Boulevard had people out the door and around the corner. They ran out of the FEMA handbooks that we hand out, so Pat Alcorn and I went back to her house and got more FEMA handbooks and took them down there to them. They're very knowledgeable and they're very willing to work with anybody, but most people have this stuff around their house if they just gathered it together and put together what's known as a go bag. You're gonna head out the door. Everybody should have this go bag in their car right now, as a matter of fact, because your car's with you wherever you are, usually, at work, at home, at school, at city council meetings, shopping. So we're just going to go around our neighborhoods and ask people, are you prepared? And they're going to give us a variety of answers. Now, those that are at work, we're going to ask them if they can ask their supervisor, can I do a quick survey of my colleagues here at work? One day I was over buying some package gizmos, whatever it was, at the Container Store, and a sales lady asked me what I was doing, and I told her I was collecting some materials to package things for my CERT go bag, and she said, oh, I should put something like that together for myself and my family members. And I said, well, at least you get to come to work in good shoes. She had her tennis shoes on, so most people are not wearing anything that they could possibly walk 20 miles in. So anything else that we can do to practice our CERT skills, we'll be doing that this Thursday, and I just wanted to share that with all of you today. And one other thing, this Thursday night, SMEAC is having its yearly dinner, and they'd like people to RSVP because they don't want the thing to happen like it happened at the Nature Friends once a year ago where everybody brought fried chicken. They really want people to share out what they might bring. And William Pasternak, the climatologist who lives here in Sierra Madre, who is JPL employee, he gave this presentation to the Kiwanis maybe a month or so ago, but that's during the noon hour, so this is in the evening. And I think if you just showed up and didn't bring a covered dish, don't eat, but sit and listen. All right? Thank you very much. It's Thursday. It's at Nature Friends, and there's very little parking, so coordinate yourself with your friends who want to go.
And it's William Patzert is his name. You said Pasternak.
I did, didn't I?
Yeah, it's Patzert.
Patzer.
And what time for the dinner?
I'm going to ask everybody to look at the SMEAC, S-M-E-A-C, online. I forget exactly. Say that again. 6 to 9.
Thank you.
We're a coordinated group here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, City Council. My name is Glenn Putnam, and I am one of your library trustees. And I've got our comments for the library this month. The library open house held on October 11th was a resounding success, as seen by near quadrupling of our average Saturday of attendance of 200 up to, we had 726 people there. Special thanks to both Jean Goss and to Rochelle Arizmendi for attending. It was great to have you both join us, and we really enjoyed you being there. The library was all spruced up for open house by volunteers from the library trustees, the friends of the library, and the library staff, who all pitched in to weed beds, plant mums, and to give the library grounds a little TLC for the event, and it looked very nice. Guests and patrons were treated with fruit and Danish and beverages from Beantown, which were a big hit. Guests and patrons were also treated to a teen docent tour of history of Sierra Madre, shown on our new electronic storyboards, and were given the opportunities for signing up for either a new library card or replacing their library card for free, which they had lost, misplaced, or the dog ate. Who knows what? With Mr. Bubble performing to a standing room only audience, we had several patrons of the diaper age group in attendance, with their staff of holders, nutritionists, and diaper changers, whom they brought along, and they also enjoyed the show just as well. If you did not attend, then you missed meeting several of our local authors and their insight into where they got their inspiration for their writings. Nor could you take advantage of the free DVDs, where some 177 DVDs were checked out compared to 25 on a non-fee day. Residents of Sierra Madre were given the opportunity to sign up for placing one of these lovely "I Love My Library" placards in their yard to show support for the library, which many did. And if any resident, Sierra Madre resident, would like to show their support of the library, just come into the library and sign up for one of these yard signs to be placed in your yard. Lastly, 144 children ages 4 through 12 enrolled in the In and Out program, where a child earns a free In and Out hamburger for every 5 books they finish reading. Each child can earn up to 3 free hamburgers, which many did. So the program was very successful. Thank you, City Council, for your time this evening and continued support of our Sierra Madre Library. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn.
Barry Gold, live at 441 Ramona Avenue. Good evening, Mayor Harabedian and council members. Last week's City Council meeting dealing with the general plan was an example of local government at its very, very best. Allowing the public to speak throughout the meeting for as long as we wanted was an exceptional thing to do. We all felt that we were truly part of the process. And we were. You made important changes to the plan, many of which were suggested by the public. This showed us how dedicated you all are to the preservation of this uniquely wonderful town. Seeing how smoothly and efficiently the process of finalizing the general plan was, I urge you to expedite the remaining meetings needed to finish the plan so the environmental impact report can be started. By the way, I have heard that the environmental impact report can cost as much as $250,000 and take up to 6 months to complete. Please find a way to do it quicker and for less money. Make it clear to the staff that this should be a top priority. Last week's council meeting was truly one we can all be proud of. Let's keep the momentum going and get the general plan completed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gold.
Thank you.
Good evening, Debbie Sheridan, Valley Vista Drive, and I must say I was out walking my dog earlier and the neighbors were out saying, look out for the bear because there he goes right up the driveway. So it's a continuing problem. I would like to address two things this evening though. Several of us spoke before the Planning Commission about a month ago and our remarks were omitted from TV, and I know they were put back later, but when you're studying the budget and what to put into the budget, please make that a priority. There are quite a few people who watch on TV or they watch on their computer. They watch both the Planning Commission and City Council meetings, and there are so many important issues coming up that they really need to know, as Mr. Gold said, exactly what the public is saying as well as what you all are saying, and we must have up-to-date equipment. And my second concern is something that I've been hearing about the sex offender ordinance that was rescinded last December, and I don't know anything about it, but I would appreciate somebody enlightening us, and I thank you all very much.
Thank you, Deb.
Good evening, my name is Jake Sally. I'm a manager at the Waterworks Aquatics, the pool down the street. And I just want to go over a few points. We have an event coming up at the end of this month on October 26th from 4 to 6 p.m. It's a Halloween-themed family swim night, just a swim party for everyone. So I'm going to do a pumpkin carving contest and costume contests. It's going to be $7 for adults, $7 for children, $5 for adults, and $25 for maximum for a group. We've also done some revisions for the Community Advisory Board. We're going to have different positions that can be held. I think we have a lap swimming / water aerobics position, swim team, swim lessons, recreational swim / social user, city staff person, waterworks staff person, and community service commission liaison. So we're accepting applications for that until this Friday, October 17th. And I have a bunch of applications here. We have applications at our pool. I think everyone knows where that is, down the street. A few improvements that we've been working on. We replaced some sand in the filters. We replaced all the showers. I know this might not sound like anything, but it's a whole lot of work that we've been doing over the last year or so. And we have a lot more plans to do throughout the next 6 months to a year. We're going to replaster both the pools, have new handrails. We are keeping the old tiles. I know that was a concern. And we're going to replace all the lane lines and pool lights and such. That's going to be done. We're cooperating with the city on that, so I'm not sure exactly what the timeline is. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Any other comments? Okay, we'll bring it back. Two things that were brought up. The public comment at the Planning Commission, Madam City Manager, were you aware of this, or was it okay, so it was just a technical glitch, or was it just a?
There is a problem that can occasionally, intermittently occur with if you're watching it on cable TV, there's no problem. But if you're video streaming it, depending on what everyone is doing in the council chambers while the video streaming is happening, which is the live meeting, there can be slowdowns. You get to spin, or somebody's, so you don't get their comment. It skips over it and starts again, and it's a bandwidth and an equipment problem. But the process, that's only during watching it live. Within about 2 to 3 days, they then broadcast off of the DVD copy that's being made as we're in the meeting right now. Once that gets to CMF, they put it the DVD on. Then from that point forward, the rebroadcasts are without a glitch. So there is a glitch occasionally, and it really has to do with a number of factors when somebody is live video streaming it from a laptop or computer. We do know, we're putting, as the council's aware, it's a combination of the age of the system, the broadcasting equipment, the computer equipment, the sound system. It's a combination of things, and we do have a proposal to, with a cost to upgrade everything so we can have. It's the really inexpensive way that the video streaming is occurring now. So there's a number of things that can be fixed to resolve this, and we'll be bringing that back to you so the council can decide whether or not to expend those funds.
Okay. And on the sex offender ordinance piece, and Madam City Attorney.
Sure, I'll try to explain. The city's authority to adopt its sex offender regulation is based on something called Jessica's Law. Jessica's Law provides, and it's a state law, provides that no registered sex offender can live within 2,000 feet of a public or private school or park where children regularly gather. Jessica's Law also contains a direct authorization for cities to have their own local version of Jessica's Law on the books. And that's what the city has. It has not been repealed or rescinded. However, the application of it has been stayed, and here's why. Right now, the California Supreme Court is reviewing whether the state Jessica's Law is going to stand as constitutional. And until they give us their guidance, we just don't know. And because of that, district attorneys throughout the state are largely not enforcing violations of Jessica's Law because it's up on review right now. So the city's ordinance, it's still on the books. It has been stayed until we have further guidance from the California Supreme Court. We were hoping for that by the end of the year. It may still happen. If not by the end of this year, then certainly we would hope by early next year. At that point in time, we'll know whether Jessica's Law is still good law, in which case at that point in time we can lift the stay on the application. On the other hand, if the court gives us some different guidance about Jessica's Law, we can amend our ordinance to conform with whatever the law is. And in the meantime, the stay helps protect the city from needless litigation from legal advocates for sex offenders. Yes, they do exist.
Thank you. Please.
Mr. Gold asked a question or made a statement about the EIR and possibly costing $250,000. Is that already baked into our consultant fees for the general plan?
The City Council awarded that contract in 2000, for Director Castro, 2009? No, 2010, 2011 is what the council formally awarded that contract. So that contract's already been awarded.
Yeah.
And the EIR is some subset of that amount, that's the total. But that included other work in addition to the EIR work. And the EIR work, based upon the council's direction for the build-out numbers, is underway right now.
Okay, so that's just embedded into the costs that
We've
we've
already
already
paid
budgeted,
for.
so it's
Correct.
not going to cost us anymore?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move on to the action items. We'll start with the consent calendar. Madam City Manager.
On the consent,
Excuse me, I'm sorry, and I've done this before. Director Inman, do you want to do a brief presentation on the water conservation? I'm sorry, Madam City Manager. And we will make it brief because we know we're running a little bit behind, but do want to see how everyone's doing on their water conservation.
All right, we continue to get comments about the front lawn at City Hall. And just put this picture in to remind everybody that we're in good company. Sacramento and the state capitol looks pretty much the same way. It's a statewide problem. September of this year, we continued a tremendous conservation effort in Sierra Madre. Total conservation for that month was over 30% conservation over the base year of 2012-2013. For this month, through the 13th, our conservation rate is 7.6% over last year and 30% total over 12-13. And so far this month, we've already saved 2 million gallons. At this point, our total in courtesy letters that we've sent out since July is over 500. Quite a few of those are second notices, and that process continues. The city water accounts, this is just a repeat of what we've indicated before. We've got 34 individual city accounts, and our conservation over the base year is 43%. Just for those that are wondering what happened on the median on Santa Anita, we've turned that off, and Public Works will be back to re-landscape that area in a drought-tolerant fashion. And the usual slide on well levels. The important thing to note here is in June, Arcadia turned their wells on and have been pumping continuously from the basin, but the water level has largely stabilized, and we've lost 0.2 of a foot since the 8th of September, which really isn't all that much. We can pretty well say that the water levels are staying stable at this point. So that's where we are. We've got no water going in, and there's water going, well, I'm sorry, there is water going in to offset what Arcadia is taking out. So the water level is holding at this point. And with that, be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, I think the upshot is the residents are doing a fantastic job still conserving, and kudos to everyone for everything that you guys are doing. As the Mayor Pro Tem said earlier, no, it's not easy, and we appreciate just how hard you're working at it, even if our neighboring cities aren't. So thank you, Director Inman. We will now move on to the consent calendar.
At consent calendar, nothing was pulled this evening. None of the items were pulled. So at consent calendar 1A is adoption of Resolution 14-78, approving the city's demands. At 1B is authorization of payments on behalf of the Public Finance Authority and the successor agency. We have a separate consent calendar item when it comes time to pay our bonds, and that's what this consent calendar item is. At 1C is authorization to bid the fiscal year 13-14 street resurfacing project. At 1D is authorization to bid the Grandview sewer replacement project. Both of those will come back to the council when we actually get bids back to award. At 1E is consideration of resolutions 14-74, the appointment of Marty Farley to a part-time interim accountant. That's a step we're required to take because she is a PERS annuitant. We have a vacant accountant position, and this is a temporary filling of that position until we recruit and hire a new one. 1F is resolution 1465, resolution amending the city's conflict of interest and disclosure monitoring agency code. This is something that is somewhat ministerial. It gives the city clerk direction on who gets which FPPC forms. At 1G is approval of resolution number 14-76, adoption of an updated classification plan and salary matrix. This adds in the position of assistant city manager and makes 3 title-only changes with no monetary impact to the 3 title-only changes. At 1H is reading of ordinance number 1355, amending Title 9 of the city's municipal code by adding Chapter 9.56, restricting the hunting of animals within the city of Sierra Madre. It is recommended that the council approve this ordinance this evening, and the ordinance has been revised per council action at your last meeting to remove the sections regarding shooting, carrying of weapons. And that concludes my presentation. Staff is present if you have any detailed questions on any of the items.
Any questions on any of the items?
Madam City Manager, on item B,
B is in boy? Or?
yeah, B is in boy. I know we all know what that amount is. It's a big one, but maybe for the benefit of the public, we could just remind them what that expenditure is for.
We have 2 water bonds, one of which is interest and principal, the other one of which is just interest payment. And then we have one, used to be an old prior redevelopment agency bond, is now the successor agency. The water bond are paid with water funds, and the successor agency bond, we do receive payment from the state. You can sort of consider it our old former tax increment money. We do get money back to pay these bonds. So the successor agency / redevelopment bonds does not come out of the city's finances.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Madam City Manager, I just had a question on 1D, which was the timing on the West Grandview sewer replacement. And we're in a tough spot here, considering it's going to take 15 working days. And, the question of whether we interrupt school or we interrupt the holidays of the residents, I don't know who we want to anger more, the residents or the school. But is there any way, if we were to do it as proposed here, are we going to shut down the street and try to divert the pickup and drop off at school? I happen to know a principal at a school pretty well, and I know that this is one of her big things that she always wants to know when, and this doesn't even affect that school, but.
We have Director Inman.
Okay, I have actually been in contact with Principal Salinas of the school. She's aware of what we're doing and didn't indicate any particular concerns over it. Regardless of whether we do this project, or at least try to start the project during the holiday break, we're still going to end up having to shut down the intersection of Grandview and Hermosa. So that little short block of North Hermosa between Grandview and Laurel is going to have to be closed to traffic. So I don't think it's going to have too much impact on the drop-off and pickup. There's still going to be a way that motorists can get around that work.
Good to know. Thank you. If there's no other questions, I'll open this up to public comment on the consent calendar. Any questions or comments? And seeing none, we'll bring it back. Any comments before we approve? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Item number 2, the consideration of appointment to the Community Services Commission youth position and appointment to Senior Services Commission. Madam City Manager.
Mayor and members of the City Council, we have one vacancy on the Community Services Commission. It is the youth seat. We received one application from Mr. George Siberl after advertising for a number of months. At the last council meeting, I did seek council authorization to proceed with just the one applicant. Additionally, there is one vacancy on the Senior Commission, and 2 applications were received from Joan Spears and Robert Tager. The council requested that we go ahead and proceed with this appointment also. Normally, we would need to wait for 3 applications to fill these positions, but given the amount of time and these commissions operating down a person, it was felt that we should bring them forward now. The City Council has had an opportunity to independently interview the applicants if they desired, so that they can make a recommendation to the mayor this evening, and then the mayor puts forth his recommendation and it is voted upon. The applicants were invited to attend this evening in the event the council would like to ask them a few questions at the meeting, and I'm not sure how many are here. We have 1.
I see George.
2.
I see Robert. I don't see Joan, but.
We have a few here.
Okay. Thank you, Madam City Manager. We'll start with the youth seat on the Community Services Commission. George, would you like to say a few words? Tough competition tonight, but you seem like you're in the lead.
Okay, hello, council members. My name is George Sibrel. I live at 331 Servant Drive. I've been living there all my 17 years. And I'm a junior at LaSalle. I played 3 varsity sports, cross country, soccer, and track. And living there, I've been full use of all the community services. I learned how to swim at the community pool. I played baseball at Heasley and Dapper. And I've been in many volunteer organizations through my middle school, which is Sierra Madre Middle School. And so with all these experiences, I love living in Sierra Madre, and I'd want to serve the city by representing the youth on the Community Services Commission.
Thank you, George. Any questions for George? Or, well, I think you're very impressive, and and the Sibrel family now has, I think, served in every capacity known to Sierra Madre. So, thank you.
City council, so
That's
maybe
right.
that's something you'll
Well,
consider in the
George,
future.
that's for you. In a couple of years, exactly. Well, thank you very much for your application, and we'll, again, we'll vote on this to make sure it's final. But thanks for coming, and
I think he has a good shot.
yeah, I think you got a good shot. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, we'll vote on this, and then we'll move on to the senior commission.
I will put my vote behind George Sibrel. I sat next to your brother in the same exact seat on the commission, so I would like to be the first to put my vote forward.
Beautiful.
I intend to vote for him as well.
I heartily endorse him.
I do too.
It's unanimous. Congratulations, George. Okay. And now you can go home if you want. Yeah, I don't make you sit longer than you need to. And now we'll move on to the senior commission, and we have 2 extremely well qualified candidates. And Mr. Tager, is that how you say it? Would you like to come up and say a few words?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Robert Tager. I live on Bonita Avenue. Been in Sierra Madre 14 years. This time, my background is all in the application, but I'll just briefly say I'm a retired neurologist. I'm also a gerontologist. I have been doing gerontology since 1975, when the first school of gerontology in the world opened at USC. Also, in my work, I have done rehabilitation medicine, which I did in the 70s at Arcadia Methodist Hospital, at Huntington Memorial Hospital, and Casa Colina Hospital in Pomona. In all of these things, I dealt with many older individuals, and I've basically been advocating for them for decades. I have a number of ideas and things I'd like to explore if I am appointed to the commission. But of course, first I would like to find out the history of the commission and what they have done, what they are doing at present, and what the plans are. But some of my interests, longtime interest in gerontology, include preserving physical and cognitive functions in older adults. These are all interrelated. And some of the methods for this are creativity and aging. There's a growing literature on creativity and aging, and the benefits to cognitive functioning with that. Computer literacy is very important, and intergenerational activities can benefit a broad spectrum of individuals. These are some things I'm interested in. I'm interested in health promotion and disease prevention, in healthcare ethics, and aging in place, or preserving individuals in their own homes for as long as possible. There are many things to do this. I just attended an all-day conference at USC on this topic. So I appreciate your consideration, and I'm very interested in serving the community, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tager. Any questions?
Yes.
For Mr. Tager? No? Thank you very much. And I don't think I see Ms. Spears here. Joan Spears is the other applicant. Any questions before we open this up for public comment? With that, I will open it up for public comment. If anyone in the audience would like to speak to this item before we discuss. And seeing none, we'll bring it back. 2 very well qualified candidates. Two people we'd be lucky to have on the commission. So I will open this up to whoever wants to start first.
I would like to make a suggestion. I don't know if we'll get the votes, but I'm just absolutely knocked over by both of these candidates. Mr. Tager, I don't know, but just reviewing his CV in the application is obviously would be an incredible asset to senior community services. Joan is a very outstanding citizen, also very well qualified and also very experienced. I would like to suggest we go back, take a look at the ordinance that sets the number of members on this commission and consider adding 2 seats to it so that we could have both of these people on.
Thoughts?
I'd rather that we keep it, well, again, at an odd number for starters, just for, protocol purposes. We're faced with these tough choices all the time. And I really think, my belief is that either way we go here, the person who is not selected will hopefully become engaged or stay engaged in the case, as the case may be. So I prefer to make that tough choice and name one of them.
Council members?
I agree with the Mayor Pro Tem, and I'm ready to vote.
Okay. I don't think it's a bad suggestion. I would have loved to have seen both of these on the commission, but we will move forward with our vote, and I'll allow anyone to go first here. Please.
I'm going to recommend Mr. Tager, if I pronounce that right again. Both are extremely qualified. I've talked to both. Joan, her history is just, it is obviously what it is. She's done a hell of a lot for the community. She's been on the commission before. She's got some great ideas. She just blows me away with all the things that are going on in her mind. But I just hate to miss the opportunity to have somebody with Mr. Tager's background. And I just, that's just basically it for me. I don't want to lose the opportunity to get his background into the commission, but really I'm fine either way. I think you can't go wrong either way. So that's my recommendation.
I haven't had the opportunity to speak to either one of them individually, and I apologize for that. It's been kind of hectic at work. I think both of the applicants are wonderful. I think I would be more inclined to support Ms. Spears only because she does have that experience with the Senior Commission, and perhaps Mr. Tager would entertain, going to some of the meetings and learning what that commission is about, since he's not that familiar with the commission itself.
I support Joan Spears as well, and I just don't think we can find very many people that have her experience and her record of accomplishment in this town. And but I'm hoping somehow we can keep Mr. Tager interested in this commission, because he would be a tremendous asset, as I said earlier.
I agree. Both candidates are excellent candidates, and I just commend Ms. Spears for all of her volunteerism and her service to the city of Sierra Madre, and I hope she continues to be engaged, which I think she will. With that, I do want to put my support behind Mr. Tager. I was a newbie myself coming into the commission. I'm excited to hear about your background and what you can bring in terms of the academic side of it, but I also was sparked when you said the intergenerational focus, and I know here in our city that we'd like to continue doing that, and being from the Community Services Commission, there was a lot of efforts behind that, so put my support behind Mr. Tager.
Yeah, no, it's great. The tiebreaker. No, and my vote is for Joan Spears, even though Mr. Tager, I don't know how we're going to keep you involved or keep you interested, but I can just say that having applied to a commission twice and being denied both times, this is now your second time being denied. Am I right? Or did you pulled out before the first, so this is your first. Hang in there and do it again and apply again, because your CV is very impressive, and I think it would do a lot of good for the city in a lot of different places, this commission being one of them. I'm voting for Joan because just her background with this commission, her knowledge, what she's doing right now with the seniors, I think is just very valuable. And I think that it would be a seamless transition for her, and I think she'd be very good on the commission. I think you'd also be very good. But my vote is for Joan Spears, and I do hope that you don't take personal offense to this, and that you come back and give it another shot, because I do think we have some openings coming up, again, with the senior commission and other commissions as well. So thank you very much for coming and spending some time with us here tonight. And I'm sorry if it was a little bit longer than you would have liked, but thank you again. So with that, my recommendation is for Joan Spears. And do we have to take a formal vote on that?
You don't have to, but you could take a formal vote.
Okay.
Perhaps there'll be unanimous support.
I move that we nominate Joan Spears as the commission chairperson.
I would like to second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Tager. It's tough. I honestly think that the toughest part of our job is coming up with an invocation on once every 5 weeks and appointing commissioners and committee members. I say that with all seriousness. And, that's why when Councilmember Goss said appoint both of them, I thought that was going to be just, a great solution. But I think we're getting a great person on the commission. So we'll move on to item number 3. And it's consideration of a nomination to the San Gabriel Basin Water Quality Authority representing cities without pumping rights. Madam City Manager.
Yes, Mayor, members of the City Council, the city has been asked to make a nomination to the San Gabriel Valley Basin Water Quality Authority representing cities without pumping rights, of which Sierra Madre is one. This is a process that is dictated by actually the state and the legislation that put this body into place, so it's a little unusual. The first step of the process is for cities to nominate individuals. At this point, cities have nominated one of 2 individuals. It must be a city council member. It could even be one of you this evening. You can nominate any elected official from any of the cities that don't have pumping rights. But to this point in time, the other cities have either nominated Mr. Louis Anguiana from South El Monte, and cities have also been nominating Rosemead Mayor Pro Tem Margaret Clark. Margaret Clark is currently the alternate to this position, while Mr. Anguiana is the appointee to this position currently. It is a 4-year term. Once the nominations are in, the top nominators will be put on an official ballot, and then that will come back for formal action at a later date.
Thank you.
That concludes my presentation.
Any questions on this?
Yes, question. When the formal ballot comes back, is it to elect the primary and the alternate, or is it first and second place get the 2
I think
positions?
it's the latter.
I don't know how that
I
works.
think it's the
don't
latter. I
know.
think it's first and second. First gets the seat, and then the second, I think, gets the alternate.
Okay.
I'm looking at what they sent us.
Any other questions? Why, City Manager?
I don't see anything in their backup documentation.
I will open this up for public comment to the extent anyone wants to let us know their thoughts. And seeing no one, I will bring it back for discussion. I'll start out by saying that I know Maggie Clark very well. We sit on the COG together, and she's extremely impressive, and she's a very, very thoughtful public servant. She was one of the main or original members of this board when it was founded, and I think has been serving on it either as the actual chair or the alternate since it was formed. So, my vote would be for Maggie Clark from Rosemead.
I had a brief opportunity to correspond with both, and I also will have my support behind Mayor Pro Tem Maggie Clark from Rosemead.
I'm supporting Maggie Clark as well.
And I'm supporting Maggie Clark as well.
So am I.
Okay. Well, that was quick. We have the direction, but we'll do a.
There is a resolution attached. Staff will revise this to drop in Councilmember Margaret Clark. into the resolution, get it signed, and we'll send it in according to the deadline, assuming the council approves this resolution with that modification of dropping the name in.
Okay. And with that modification, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Item number 4, gas company request for municipal code amendment.
We have Director Inman on this.
Director Inman.
The brief report.
Good evening again, Mayor and council members. The gas company is in the process of instituting an advanced metering infrastructure system across their entire service area. The utility has requested a permit to replace or to install a data receiving antenna, or DCU, on city property, which requires under the current municipal code a conditional use permit. The gas company has in turn requested a code amendment that would exempt that utility from the CUP process. Staff recommends that the City Council provide direction as to whether or not the council is willing to consider the requested code amendment. The utility has completed the installation of their AMI infrastructure in Sierra Madre with the exception of the installation of their data collection unit. The utility has selected a single site which would cover all of Sierra Madre. The gas company wishes to place an antenna on the grounds of the city's Miramonte Reservoir site. While staff has noted that the site may be acceptable, staff has also noted to the gas company that they must first obtain a conditional use permit from the city. Gas company has, however, disagreed, contending that the Public Utilities Commission and the gas company's franchise agreement with the city grants the utility the authority to make the proposed installation without complying with any city restrictions, other than perhaps an encroachment permit. So at this point, a form of impasse has been reached in the discussions that have been ongoing since 2012 with the gas company. Staff continues to require the CUP application per the municipal code, and the gas company continues to maintain that the Public Utilities Commission and the franchise agreement exempt them from the CUP requirement. The gas company has requested a modification or amendment to our municipal plan that would add an exemption to the municipal code for their facilities, which would read as proposed by the gas company. Wireless telecommunications facilities that transmit and or receive electromagnetic signals used for the purpose of reading natural gas metering equipment or otherwise remotely controlling natural gas pipeline valves and equipment. One concern that I just realized this afternoon as reading through this is prior to this date, the gas company has characterized this particular installation as transmitting and receiving signals from their metering devices. This second part that's been added here, or otherwise remotely controlling natural gas pipeline valves and equipment, seems to be something new that's been added, and perhaps we can get an explanation from the gas company representatives that are here tonight whether or not they're looking for exemptions for future installations as well that would cover the control of valves and equipment. With that, staff recommends that the City Council provide direction to staff as to whether or not Council would be willing to consider the requested code amendment. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Director. And we can ask questions of the director and our city attorney and city manager, and then I will let the gas company come up and address us. So any questions for the director?
The AT&T put up their cell tower. Did they get a CUP?
The cell providers have been getting CUPs. They have been adhering to our CUP requirement for each of their facilities.
Please, yeah.
Yeah, the gas company is arguing that this is an appurtenance, I think is the term that's used.
Correct.
And, you know, the language, the way I read it, and again, maybe the city attorney can comment on this, is that, you know, there is no such appurtenance today. I mean, they don't use this today to to move gas through the pipeline. So I'm in my mind, it doesn't apply, that they have no right that I can see to do this, because they're really changing the way they collect the data from the devices rather than changing their operation and how they move gas through the pipeline or supply gas to its customers. So I'd like to get your thought on that, and your interpretation of their argument here.
Well, I haven't looked so much at whether this advance in technology is an appurtenance, although that was an issue that I had. But what I have looked at since 2012 is the issue of whether the city is in fact preempted from requiring a conditional use permit in order to protect the city's scenic corridors and aesthetic concerns, which is under its general constitutional power to protect the public safety and welfare. And there is nothing that I can see in case law or the Public Utilities Code that would suggest to me that the city is preempted from doing this. In fact, the Public Utilities Code under Section 2902 says this chapter shall not be construed to authorize any municipal corporation to surrender to the CPUC its powers of control to supervise and regulate the relationship between a public utility and the general public in matters affecting the health, convenience, and safety of the general public, including matters such as the use and repair of public streets, et cetera, et cetera. And furthermore, there is an existing, it's very old, franchise with the city, and that franchise agreement actually has specific language in it that recognizes under this agreement that the gas company agrees to in its construction, installation, maintenance of pipes, appurtenances, et cetera, is in accordance with and is in conformity with all of the ordinances, rules, and regulations heretofore or hereinafter adopted by the legislative body of the city in the exercise of its police powers and not in conflict with the paramount authority of the state of California. And I have never seen anything that was in conflict with the city's ability to simply try to guard its aesthetic concerns.
Okay, and also, I remember when we looked at this, it might have been about 2 years ago when I looked at it, there was an argument made by the gas company that the Public Utilities Commission supported their position, and there was a letter at that time that I thought was pretty weak as far as supporting the gas company's position, but that wasn't included in our package here.
It was not. I know the letter that you're speaking of, and I think I was asked at that council member whether it was my legal opinion, whether that was a preemption issue. I think that might have had to have been with the trimming of trees, and I would agree that that also doesn't preempt the city's ability to have a reasonable requirement to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the city.
Yeah, and now the statement that, maybe this is a better question for the gas company, it says the gas company is not refused, meaning refused to apply for the conditional use permit, but it says that agreement between the city and the gas company requires the gas company to maintain, repair, upgrade pipelines as well as appurtenances. Gas meters and data collection units are appurtenances, but my point is there isn't one today. This is something new that isn't there, and there's nothing here about installing it. So if we're going to install it for the first time, I could kind of buy that argument that maybe maintaining and repairing it from that point, they don't have to apply for a CUP, but installing it, I just agree that we have to protect our own interest here. And I still, after looking at this time and in the past year or two when I looked at it, I cannot understand why the gas company can't do this. So, okay. See what.
Any other questions? Thank
I
you.
just had a question for either Director Inman or for the city manager, is just timeline-wise, so I have an understanding. How long has this, I don't know if it's, the impasse started 2 years since the original request?
Yeah, the earliest document I have is from March of 2012.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I will allow the gas company to come up and address the council.
Okay, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Manager, City Council, and staff. I'm Helen Romero Shaw, Public Affairs Manager. Just a little bit of background. My area of responsibilities includes all the West San Gabriel Valley. And so I start from 605, I go up to the city limits of LA, down to all the foothill cities and to the 60 freeway. And I would like to, as much as possible, respond to some of the questions. The Vice Mayor mentioned about appurtenances. I'm looking at the franchise agreement. Now, this is a legal document that the gas company signed with the city where allows us to do work in the street, and in turn, the gas company provides a monetary consideration for being able to work in the street. And at the same time, we agreed that we would pay for all permits for us to do that work. But it's very interesting that the Vice Mayor brought this up, because I have a document dated August the 8th, 1944. And in there, it spells out appurtenances. And it says, the phrase pipes and appurtenances shall mean pipe, pipeline, main, which is a pipeline, service, trap, vent, vault, manhole, meter, gauge, regulator, valve, conduit, appliance, attachment, appurtenance, and any other property located or to be located in, upon, along, across, under, or over the streets of the city, and used in transmitting or distributing gas. This is 1944.
And sorry, not to cut you off, and we'll get right to the we'll get right to the heart of the matter. And you're touching upon, and let us just ask questions, because I think it might go quicker.
Okay, so that's one question.
Yeah, but can you clarify? I think the point is that definition of appurtenant. We're not disputing what the definition is. The point is that there was no and there is no existing appurtenant as of now, and the agreement only says that you can maintain existing appurtenance. And right now, we're talking about something that doesn't exist.
No,
you are looking
it
to
existed in 1944.
No, the
I
agreement
just read
existed.
to you
The agreement
what
existed.
The agreement was.
The point is that the appurtenant that we are discussing, if it is an appurtenant, does not exist. It hasn't been built yet. Correct?
Actually, we have.
Well, I mean, it hasn't been built. You're asking for approval to actually build it, so it hasn't been built. We can agree about we can agree on that.
That's correct. Not in the city of Sierra Madre, but we have 31 cities in San Gabriel Valley,
Right.
And they all have their networks up, and they all have their data collector
Right.
units.
Yeah, the point is, though, that you haven't built this in Sierra Madre yet.
No,
Correct?
because
Okay.
we haven't been able to get a permit.
Right. And so there isn't.
Have been able to, you have not applied for the
We
permit.
did apply, but we weren't allowed to apply because of the CUP requirement.
Okay. So, and, I think the thing that we as a council need to know is, despite the plain language of the franchise agreement and the Public Utilities Commission code, what is your theory as to why the Public Utilities Commission and or the franchise agreement give you the ability to bypass our CUP process, which has been established in this city for years? What is the basis?
Well, according to our legal opinion, and we got this from our attorneys, and case law, with all due respect to the city attorney, but we've had a lot of case law, that the franchise agreement gives us, just like the Vice Mayor read, allows us to work in the street and to maintain, repair, bring in natural gas, and also maintain all of our appurtenances. So that includes regulators, gas meters, riser. I mean, there's different equipment that I think people are used to just getting natural gas through their appliances, and they know about the pipelines. But there's also a lot of appurtenances.
Mm-hmm. And I think the one thing that the franchise agreement is missing, and it's very critical here, is it does not say that you are allowed to install appurtenance without going through the process. And I think that is the issue here. And I think the city attorney explained that very well. And, again, I don't think that what you're saying is necessarily frivolous or you're trying to lie to us. I just think there's definitely a disconnect on your interpretation of the franchise agreement and our interpretation. And when in doubt, we are going to go with the advice of our city attorney. And to be quite honest with you, I agree with that, her interpretation. Now, not to waste your time, I'm not sure what else you had prepared to talk about, but that really is the heart of the matter, whether the franchise agreement would allow for you to bypass the CUP process. And unless there's anything else in the agreement that would, I'm not quite sure what else.
Well, if I could explain a little bit about the CUP process, that's discretionary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's what the franchise agreement does not allow. It does not allow for or provide for a discretionary permit, which means that a body will say yes or no, and then CEQA may be triggered, and it also puts conditions on our permits, which is, so we have constantly informed all the cities that we work with that this process does not apply to us because we are because of the franchise agreement. Mm-hmm. And we've never had any issues. This is actually the only city where we've had this particular issue. And so with all due respect to everybody, I think we're going to have to, I know we're going to insist that we're not going to follow the CUP. It's just like doing work out in the street. We pull a permit.
Yeah, well, unfortunately it's not. It's very different.
We put in a regulator to regulate gas. It's the same process.
Okay. And then any other questions, and then we'll move on to public comment, and then we'll come back for discussion. Sorry.
I did want to address a letter from the CPUC.
Sure.
We can get a letter. The original letter from 2 years ago was just a preliminary letter, but if that would be something that you want from us, we can get the CPUC letter.
I have a question.
I just want to make that clear. It's nothing I want. There was this dialogue going back and forth. I met with you. I talked to our city attorney. I looked at the information in front of me, and I came to a conclusion. I mean, you could have gone yourself and gotten another letter if you felt that was necessary. You knew we were at an impasse, so it's nothing I want.
Well, no, I honestly thought that this body would consider it because we've got 2.5 million meters up already, all of Southern California. We've got the San Gabriel Valley. As a matter of fact, you have meters that are already activated in Sierra Madre.
I'm one of them.
Yeah,
but we're here to consider it, and that's exactly what we're doing, asking questions, and then we're going to deliberate.
And then one more question that the councilwoman had about AT&T cell tower. AT&T does not have a franchise agreement with the city of Sierra Madre. They have a statewide franchise. So they would have to go under the CUP. Plus, they're a communication company. We're not. All we're doing is we're taking the meter readers off the street and replacing them with technology. That's all it is. They're reading. We're going to have a data collector unit that's going to read the usage of our customers from the meter and send it on to company servers. That's all it is. It's a one-way communication.
Can I just ask? I mean, that's the communication, though. It's a wireless communication. Okay.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Okay, Mr. Duff?
I'm at a loss here, ma'am. First of all, this is obviously something that benefits you. It may benefit the customers in town. I'm not sure, but it's pretty obvious you're going to save some money by using these meters electronically with these radio signals. So I'm at a loss. I mean, it would seem to me you guys we would all want to cooperate here to put this together. And what is so egregious about the CUP? I don't understand.
I guess I'm not explaining it correctly, but we have a franchise agreement. It's a legal document that we're not able to violate. It's a legal document that gives us the right to go into the street or on a customer's property and provide gas service and maintain all our facilities, our pipelines and all the appurtenances.
Okay.
So that's really what it is, and that's and we cannot go through a CUP process because that is a body that can put restrictions on our permit application, and just have a right of refusal.
Okay.
So
Before we have public comment, can I ask their attorney
Absolutely, absolutely.
that if they cannot do a CUP?
Well, they certainly could do a CUP, and I'm just going to read this again. This is the controlling document, the franchise agreement that they signed, that they agreed to be bound by. The grantee of the franchise shall construct, install, and maintain all pipes and appurtenances in accordance with and in conformity with all of the ordinances, rules, and regulations heretofore or hereafter adopted by the legislative body of this city in the exercise of its police powers and not in conflict with the paramount authority of the state of California.
So again, I'm just wondering why the CUP seems so egregious. It's a pretty straightforward process, right? I mean, do you have any doubt that you would get approval?
Again, we have a franchise agreement, and we have no problems applying for a permit. We don't have no problems with paying the fees and paying encroachment fees. We will work with the city staff to find a proper location. I really think you should send this on to a public hearing because more than half of your citizens already have upgraded modules, and then the other half doesn't. So there's an inconsistency here on, it's not fair for some of your citizens to be able to go online, check their gas usage, make decisions about conservation. You talked about water conservation. They can make a decision about gas conservation and keep track of their bills. And then the other half of the citizens don't have that opportunity. So it just doesn't make sense to us. I really would asking you to send this to the next meeting and have a public hearing.
Okay, I appreciate that. Any other questions for Ms. Romero-Shaw? And then I'm going to open it up for public comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much
Okay.
for listening.
Any public comment on this? Questions?
Hi, Barbara Lee Klein. I'm curious, can there other locations in Arcadia and Pasadena pick up and do a reading, or does it have to be located in Sierra Madre? Because what I'm hearing is that we might lose a valuable area that we can install another cell phone tower. I made a simple phone call to 911, maybe a block away from the fire station, and was not able to reach it. We need some more cell phone towers in town. I did hear something, I kept on hearing franchise agreement. What I didn't hear is the gas company's legal department has not updated their contract with the franchise agreement. They went on and on about all that they can or can't do, including encroachment, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't hear anything about new electronic collection towers. So they need to backstep, do their homework, and include that. And if they have to send it up through Sacramento, go ahead, but it was nothing in the franchise agreement that I heard versus what our attorney read. So you're lacking that from your legal department. I don't see any reason why they cannot go through our CPU process that we have here, especially if we're going to be giving up area that we ourselves could use. And I'm just curious, just to throw in a little bit of heat here with the gas. Did the city of San Bruno, did they have one of these towers to electronically monitor the gas that blew up from the street? Because I'm a little bit leery about all this new satellite collection of information, but the old nose works well.
Thank you, Barbara Lee. Any other comments or questions? And we'll bring it back to council and have discussion on this. And I'll allow anyone to begin on their thoughts.
I don't know a whole lot about the gas business, but I know that when you have customers here who have been in good standing with you for a long time, and you're about ready to institute a process where you're saving costs and making more money, it would seem to me, aside from everything else being equal, that you would have a spirit of cooperation, and that the CUP is not really that asking a whole heck of a lot. And also, I'm just thinking, in terms of the benefit that the gas company gets from this, I'm kind of wondering why we're not actually talking about renting such a tower and gaining some revenue from it, because it would seem to me that we're just giving this away, and that's probably not a great thing to do with the financial climate we're in right now.
We have to research that.
I'll just say my biggest concern is I don't have a personal problem with the proposed location of the tower. I believe it's just a monopole that's going to go into the city, the water facility on the corner of Mountain Trail and Miramonte. But I really think that the public should weigh in on that, and that's the really bottom line for me. We require this for wireless communication from everybody else, and I just think it's wrong to exclude the gas company and give them a break on it. And just listening to the arguments, I just cannot see how the franchise agreement precludes the gas company from going through the CUP process. Yes, it's a discretionary process, but I really have a hard time envisioning that we would going through the process would result in complete refusal to find a suitable location for that tower. The process is to make sure that the public can live with what we come up with, and I'm just extremely confident that both parties would be satisfied by going through the process. And I'll say this, I mean, they came over and installed the unit and then notified me that I'm on AMI. And I don't think my life is any better than it was before that happened, so I really don't know how big an issue this is with the community. You're still going to get your meters read either way, and yeah, you might not have daily information on it, but, you know, the CUP process will allow the public to communicate and speak out on that, and they have the right to do it today, and nobody stood up to come to the podium. So I'm not sure how big an issue this is for the public. So I'm really just against the language that's going to be that was proposed to be inserted here, and I really encourage the gas company to just go ahead and go through the CUP process or come up with another idea that allows this to resolve itself.
Thank you.
After reading this and listening to everybody, I think the 1944 franchise agreement did not specifically call out the wireless telecommunication because that technology wasn't there yet. And it is communication. Even though it is a meter reader, we're talking about wireless communication, and we ask that of all of our other wireless connections to come in before and do a CUP. And I don't see why we would exempt the gas company for that. I also have a problem with the language of the second part of that, remotely controlling natural gas pipeline valves and equipment. That's something different than the wireless telecommunication. So I would like to see them get a CUP.
I'm sure there's some merit into installing the pole. I'm sure there's some benefits to the residents. And at the same time, I think I just have seemed very clear to me as to how the franchise agreement read. And I think any new resolutions or changes in ordinance would almost contradict that. And I do agree that the public should have a say in this installation, as it does with other installation poles from other utility companies. And I would not be in support of this new resolution.
And I agree with my colleagues. I do appreciate you guys coming, but I think that, the gravity of what you're proposing needs to be completely understood. Under your interpretation of the franchise agreement, you would be allowed to put up a pole without our input or our public having a say on it in the center of our city, in Kirstein Court, at Baldwin and Sierra Madre Boulevard, under your interpretation. And, I think, quite honestly, that's absurd to think that the city wouldn't have the ability to conduct a public hearing like a CUP to make sure something like that didn't happen. And that's all we're doing here. We don't necessarily have a problem with where the poll's going or the fact that you're trying to do this. In reality, it probably benefits both parties. All we are doing here is making sure that the city and its residents are protected, and making sure that future representatives of the gas company, no offense to you, don't 20 years down the line, if we were to approve this this code amendment, would propose something as absurd as I just proposed. Because, again, if we were to adopt this amendment, the gas company would have no problem doing that. And I think that as a council, we would be very foolish to do that. So with that, I will entertain a motion, and it sounds like there is consensus on denying the code amendment, but we'll just take a formal vote.
Do we need to? I mean, unless there is a motion.
I don't need a motion.
Unless
Okay.
there's a motion
Well,
to come back with a code amendment, which it doesn't sound like there is.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate you guys coming and listening and having this debate with us, but at this point, we're going to deny your code amendment request. Thank you very much. On to item number 5, reorganization follow-up regarding City Hall hours. Madam City Manager. And you,
Finishing my
please,
note on
you
this
can, do not feel like you need to stay and listen to this. It's not the most scintillating stuff, so. Well, depends. Depends.
Okay. At your September 23rd meeting, the council considered a proposed reorganization plan, which, as you're aware, was not ultimately approved by the city council. There are a few aspects of the reorganization that can be implemented because they fall fully within the city manager's authority pursuant to our municipal code and our personnel rules, etc. One of those things was is the relocation of the community center staff from the community center, relocating them into City Hall, putting the administrative aide at the front counter to help assist the front counter. So the council asked whether or not doing this would be enough to open up City Hall back the hours it used to be, 7:30 to 5:30, Monday through Thursday. We were open every other Friday. The reorganization as proposed would have opened up City Hall 7:30 to 5:30 Monday through Thursday, and the Public Works and Development Services counter would have continued to have had reduced hours but opening up at 7:30 a.m. like all of City Hall, closing at 2:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday. This was all possible because of the addition of about 2,500 hours annually to City Hall staffing. Those hours were made up by increasing an administrative. We currently have one part-time administrative person who's shared between two departments, restoring administrative aid to both of them. The part-time contract permit tech would have alleviated some of the traffic we get at the planning counter, and then about 1,040 hours from the administrative aide coming over to sit at the front counter, which would have resulted in about 6,600 total hours. Instead, we're going to end up with about 4,000 total hours because we're still going to have that one aide we share between two departments, a part-time aide, and just half of the administrative aide from Community Services. This is detailed in the staff report. I know it's kind of hard to follow just verbally. At this time, staff is recommending that we be allowed to return in January 2015 with a recommendation for a number of reasons. The first one is we're currently in a position where we have a number of key positions that are vacant. We don't have a full-time finance director right now. We're recruiting. We have an interim part-time finance director. We have an interim part-time accountant, as you're aware, we're currently recruiting for that position. Our planning director position will be vacant the end of this month. And then we'll be recruiting for that position. And then the community center staff, or the staff for community services, we do have a vacancy the end of this month in a recreation supervisor vacancy. So that in taking the administrative aide, we would have to free up half of her time. So we would be reassigning duties. We're not going to have the recreation supervisor position. I am proposing that as these full-time positions through attrition become vacant, I do need to bring them back to the council to see whether or not we fill these positions. You know, we're looking at a budget situation that we need to resolve. And to put it bluntly, it's easier to take salary savings when a position is vacant than to be in the position of having to lay off employees. That's the toughest decision, you know, council would have to make. So I will be bringing back this recreation supervisor position, letting the council know what level of services we can provide with an aide and a recreation manager without having this full-time recreation supervisor. Number one reason is the one I just explained with all the current vacancies we have at this moment in time. Hopefully by January, the dust would have cleared. We'll have some people in permanent positions. We can make an assessment of what our hours can be. The second and probably the largest reason is, as you're aware, the planning department and the public works department and administration are going to have our hands more than full with dealing with getting the general plan to the council in a timely manner so that gets approved as quickly as possible. And we have about 40 items that are related to the water moratorium. We call them our list of 40 items. We have 2 years to get the various ordinances and regulation and rules back to you before the 2-year moratorium is lifted. And I think obviously it's a council and staff priority that those things get done sooner rather than later. And opening up City Hall, where you may think it's just the front counter staff that's impacted at the finance counter, it's not, because people will come in and need to meet with the directors. We'll need to meet with the second in commands, which is the daily issues that come up that people have. Currently, there's this, call it, we're here working. I think some members of the public think that we are only here working the hours that City Hall is open. No, we're still in here 7:30 to 5:30, many of us longer than that. We're still in here every other Friday, but we're able to sort of use that quiet time to get the work done. So for all of those reasons, it is recommended, it is staff's recommendation that we come back in January with a recommendation. But ultimately, we are seeking your policy direction on this matter.
Thank you. And I believe was this Councilmember Del Mar that brought it back, or was there another?
No, it was the council. It was council consensus.
I was gonna let you have the first shot if you wanted it, but if anyone can ask questions to the extent they have them.
You may have said this, Madam City Manager, but why January 15th?
We just hope that in the next 3 months, we'll get the finance director full, the accountant filled, and the planning director vacancy. And I'll have direction on what the council wants to do with the recreation supervisor position.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, how does the recreation supervisor affect the front counter?
That could potentially affect the front counter. As we have a full-time position vacancy, I propose to bring that to the council to say, I'll use this as an example. Right now, there are 3 full-time people in community services. This is the level of service. These are all the programs. If the council decides to direct me not to fill that full-time recreation supervisor position, to take the salary savings because it's a full-time benefited position, this is the level of service we can provide. If we still had the 3 positions, we would need to take some of the secretaries, to make it simple, half of the secretary's duties, and reallocate them to the other 2 full-time employees to free up some of her time to be able to assist at the front counter, because she currently has a full-time job in community services. So I won't have the ability to reallocate her work to 2 employees, just 1. Something's going to have to give. We're going to, come back with a report on what the department would look like with 2 staff members, but that's potentially how it could impact it. And until the council gives me direction, yes, you're still going to have 3 full-time staff members there. It's hard for me to know how much time the secretary's position is going to be freed up.
Any questions?
I'll wait for public comment.
Okay. We'll open up for public comment.
Hi, Barbara Lee, like a Jack in the Box tonight. Couple questions. How long ago was City Hall closed? Wasn't it just 2 years? So it shouldn't be all that difficult to go back to what we had 2 years ago. And how long ago was it every Friday? I think we should bring back all Fridays. Nothing wrong with the public making appointments, free at the front desk or the planning department or anything else. The public knows how to pick up the phone and make an appointment to come in, not just show up at the front desk. That might be, useful. But I don't understand where the savings are. If the staff is all here, and like I've said before, the air conditioning's running, the lights are on, the building's just on lockdown, what's wrong with opening it back up to the public? I think the seniors would have a much simpler time getting in. The builders wanting to pull permits would have a much simpler time coming in. So I really don't know what's the difficulty. The rest of it will kind of rearrange it. How much are we saving right now having things closed? Are we saving anything? It just doesn't seem to be all that difficult to go ahead and open back up the City Hall. It hasn't been closed that long. And by the way, I really do think the planning department needs all the assistance it can get. So when you're rearranging things, really I hope that department gets the crux of what they need. That's why we have the 2-year moratorium, to catch up on the zoning and the codes, and to really catch up now that, our lovely Danny is going to be moving up to Sausalito, and I hope he has a wonderful time up there, but we'll miss him. But really, I don't understand what's the difficulty with just opening up City Hall. I don't see what the savings are.
Thank you, Barbara Lee. Any other comments?
Caroline Brown. I guess one of the things I'd like to share with you is an observation I made one day when I was down here. I had to pick something up at the police department. There was a woman at the door. I think she wanted to drop off her absentee ballot, and she was astonished that City Hall was not open at that time of day. I don't think she had much occasion to come out here and do much work over the years. I asked her, did she not know about it? And she said, no, when did it happen? And I couldn't tell her exactly that it was effective July the 1st, 2013. I just happened to know that from our city's webpage because, and anyhow, she had lived here in town for 30 years, and she was a little bit disturbed that her City Hall wasn't open to her as a resident to come and do something as simple as dropping off her absentee ballot. I have no idea what she ended up doing with it. She went away pleasantly enough. But what I'm doing right now is I'm looking at all the websites for all the different cities throughout our 25th district as I'm doing some research for Carol Liu. And when you see our website and down the left-hand side City Hall hours, it just seems like, what happened to Sierra Madre? Doesn't it sort of exist on a regular basis that the doors are open and people are there doing business? I do believe that people come to work 9 o'clock in the morning. I hope they don't take a lunch from 12 to 1 since the city walks through the door, shows up at 11, and hopefully the people that they'd like to see are in their office, or someone can say, yes, you can make an appointment, come back tomorrow, or whatever it is. Because, you open to the community is expecting a city to be responsible. I know that we had an every other Friday at one time, and then all Fridays, as of now. We also had a time when it was late one evening, I think it was a Tuesday for some reason. It was probably way back when the city council met on Monday. So city council moved to Tuesdays so that the 72-hour part could stretch out over a longer weekend. So things have moved around all over the place. But I think the most important thing is that the citizens have a sense that this city is open to them. And somehow, I don't know why, but I don't think that's the way it feels right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Back again.
Yeah, really. I did not plan on this. I think you need to hold off on opening City Hall. I think people forget that we cut something like 20,000 hours in 2 years from 2012 to 14. And they don't realize that people have full-time jobs. And we've cut back so much that we don't have enough staff to do the full-time jobs they've had. And it caused us to have to close City Hall. So maybe when you get to the curtailments, you'll be able to figure it out. But I think for now, we've kept them closed. I think we should continue to keep them closed until January, until your staffing is a little more stable. And people just have to get used to it. There's only so much money to go around. And that's it. They have full-time jobs. You cut them back. At some point, you get to the point where it's staff abuse. You just are forcing people to try to continue working. They're not getting paid for overtime. And, you know, they can't do all the work. That's all there is to it. So I think that's about it. I just suggest you keep it closed until you can get staffing stable. Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy. Any other comments?
Good evening again. If we really can't afford to keep our city hall open for more than the reduced hours we've been using recently, then maybe you could decide to alter those hours, but keep them the same 6 hours, but make the city hall open earlier. The hours you picked are those that are impossible for us who work to come and utilize the facilities here. Maybe one day a week you can start at 7 to 2, and another week noon to 8, so that, and then the other days some other hours, so that every day the same. I think it's 11 to 5. None of us can get here in those hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Any other comments?
Mayor and
Yes.
City Council, I feel compelled to speak.
Absolutely. Would you like to go to the podium? Okay.
Nancy Schallenberger, East Grandview.
Who's taking the minutes? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
You'll remember what
That's
you
right.
said, though, and write it down.
There have been many times that I have come to City Hall before 11 o'clock, and there has been 10 people standing at the door. I was appalled. That is not serving our residents, and we need to be open a full day, 5 days a week. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Any other comments? And we'll bring it back for discussion.
Okay, well, I'll start.
All right.
So that my understanding is that we closed the city hall so that we could get caught up on some projects, and I understand we've caught up on all those projects. The city manager said that. I would have loved to have seen an extra person or two over at in the development services, but city council made a decision not to do that, and we have to support that. So then I look and say, well, how did we operate 2008, 2009, 2010 with the staffing, and we were able to have the longer hours? And really, if you look at the administration staffing, it was down, one full-time person, or just if we even do the FTEs, not even a full 0.5% of a FTE in administration. So that's where a lot of the front counter work goes. I do think that our development services and our public works do need that extra time, and that's why I would propose that they still close at 2:30, each of those, which is only 1 hour that they would be open longer than they are right now. And the other front counter, because we would have the community service person over there, it's only open 3.5 hours more. Fridays are still closed, so you have a full 8 hours where you'll be able to do the big projects and catch-up work as well. But I think we're sending a really bad message to our city. If we were truly saving money by not having the doors open, that's different, but we're not saving any money. We still have the same amount of people working, whether the doors are open or not. And I remember that we said that there's about 15 to 18 people that come in each day. So I don't think we have it's that big of an impact in the front desk. I think what's happening is it's going to get harder and harder for city staff to go back to having an all-day when they're used to only having the doors open part of the time. So I think it's going to get harder to open up those city hall hour doors. And I do think we need to be able to serve our public and work with those that come in the morning, who need to come in the morning, the building permits, the people who are going off to work. The reason that we closed was to get the work done, and my understanding is the work has been done. And I know that we reduced FTEs, but the majority of those really were in community services and the lifeguards, so I don't think they were really out in the front answering phones and dealing with people. So that was 9 people there. So I would like to see us open them with abridged hours for public works and development services. I would love if we could put our administrative assistants in those departments full time, again, to help. But I do think we need to somehow serve our public.
Thank you. I have a question for you, Councilmember Denmark. Are you, when you're talking about the full-time position, you're talking about the contract techs we were talking about, the temporaries?
No, this would be just a one full-time FTE. If each administrative assistant in each of those departments, right now they're part-time, if we could just make them each full-time. Right now you have one person who works in public works half the time, one person in development services half the time. If we could just have one person dedicated in development services, one person dedicated to public works, would help with the workload as well as getting some of the stuff that we need done in development services, the extra workload that they would have.
In lieu of that, could you repeat again what you're proposing in terms of the hours?
Hours, I would do 7:30 to 5:30, Monday through Thursday, for the finance counter, the front counter, and then 7:30 to 2:30, the public works and development services. And every other Friday, of course, would still, they would be here, but they would be closed and able to catch up with big projects or have meetings.
I've already said earlier, I think maybe we've talked about this twice now, or maybe once or twice, that one of the things that when Madam City Clerk says that she's seen people outside, I've heard people tell me that they've been in lines outside. I've heard people tell me that they were very dissatisfied with not giving access to the city, and I think we need to serve them. And also, I believe that we need to send a signal that, look, we're open for business. I think this is a very symbolic thing going on here that I think maybe some of us are missing. Now, the cost problem is a very real problem. And I understand there are people in our community that don't believe that. They don't believe that we've made all these cuts to our personnel in the last few years, but all you have to do is go back and look at the budgets, and we have, because of financial necessity. So I'm under no illusion that opening up City Hall is not going to have an impact on our employees. It will, but I believe that if we ask the city manager to open up the hours as Councilmember Del Mar is proposing. I believe that she could get that done, but I think everyone should understand that we're probably going to have, there'll be a trade-off. We're going to probably see some level of productivity somewhere else diminished to some degree, and I'm not sure what that would be. But I'm inclined to support that motion. I really do believe that this is a more important issue than maybe some of us realize.
Thank you.
We've definitely heard from the public in terms of the need for City Hall hours to be open, and as we were looking at the reorganization, that was definitely at the top of our list of considerations as to what one of the goals we were striving for. With that being said, because reorganization did not pass, I mean, the reason that some of those moves were made was in order to ensure that we had the city hours or City Hall hours open as we proposed. And considering all the vacancies at this point and looking at this from an organizational perspective and a programmatic perspective, as much as I want to open up those City Hall hours, I think it would be in our best interest to wait until January 2015, and I don't know if those 2 months are sufficient, but as we are looking at budget, this has to be considered as we are looking at filling those vacancies, and really those priorities that we had talked about with respect to water conservation, with general plan. I'm hearing that there is a need, everything's a priority at this point, but we really have to be able to push one thing or the other, and I think it would make sense for us to wait until January 2015 to consider the City Hall hours to be changed.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Well, I've certainly hearing the message that, our citizens expect City Hall to be open, but at the same time, I'm just kind of baffled that we can pretend that we can do all of our priorities simultaneously and cut the budget at the same time. So we're playing with fire here, and it's really concerning me greatly that we've got this looming budget deficit, and yet we've got people clamoring to have the City Hall hours open. I'm under no illusion that we can do this, keep the hours open with it not affecting getting other things done. So I'm inclined to agree with Councilmember Arizmendi that we should wait on this. And I keep saying this about priorities, is understand that the public wants this, but we have a fiduciary responsibility to the city to ensure that we are keeping the finances balanced. And we have a big job ahead of us to figure out how we're going to balance the budget. So I'm inclined to wait, but I've come around to supporting the concept that we need to get the City Hall hours open, but it's just not the right time to do it with all the losses in personnel that we have, with all the priorities that we've established. So I'd like to wait a little bit, but I do get the message that this is important to a lot of people.
Yeah, I think so this discussion has now happened for the Mayor Pro Tem and I about 5 times. And when it was initially proposed, I was very much against closing City Hall. And I thought the symbolic message you were sending, was a really tough one to send to the community, which is, the People's Building is really, not open for business. And I thought that would really hurt our image. And I think it has. I don't think that a lot of folks in the public are very happy with the lack of, hospitality that some of us show, and maybe City Hall being closed is part of that, and I'm very aware of that, and I think that for Council Members Goss and Del Mar, it's hard to disagree with you guys. I mean, I think that you're absolutely right. It's getting City Hall open should be a priority. The question, and Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Arizmendi said, is when when can we do it? And in my mind, we need to get back to City Hall being open. I just don't think we can do it before we figure out what our staffing looks like and what the budget looks like. That being said, I think that Mr. Gold had an interesting idea, which is to change the hours. I mean, I I, for one, think that the 7:30 to 2:30 timeframe that Councilmember Del Mar proposed as being the time for Public Works and Public Works and Development Services really would be a more convenient schedule for City Hall in general. And to me, I would propose going to the 7:30 to 2:30 schedule until we can revisit this in January and see where staffing is. And in the back of our minds, I think that we should always try to push towards the goal of reopening City Hall. I really do. I mean, I don't think it should be an acceptable status quo to keep City Hall closed. You know, I think it's unacceptable. And I think that we need to get to opening up City Hall, and I do appreciate the new council members for keeping this on our radar and for making this a priority that we're going to keep revisiting. Now, you know, how many times do we have to keep revisiting? You know, and I think it is a good question. I think after January, we're going to have a very good sense as to whether we're going to actually be able to open them with the budget. And, you know, until then, I would propose going to the 7:30 to 2:30 schedule. I don't think that necessarily solves the issue. I think it just, obviously, you know, changes the amount of, the amount of hours we're open is the same, but it just changes the shift in the day as to which people can and cannot come in. So that's where I stand right now. I do hear my colleagues about City Hall being closed and I think the harm that it causes, but I guess I'm being realistic about our staffing right now and the upcoming budget discussions we're going to have on that. So.
What only thing I would request is between now and January, I would like to know the exact positions that are different and lacking at the front counter and Public Works and Development Services, because I really do not see that there's a big staffing change there that would affect that. And now that I'm hearing that it's because we're missing directors, I'm not sure the directors were serving the public. I know that they come in and ask to talk to the directors, but that's a different reason. My whole problem with this has always been there's a different reason every time we ask why City Hall is closed. And if the reason that you guys did before was so we could get work done, I understand that all those projects have been done.
Is that true?
When we originally brought this to council, those backlog projects did primarily we've added new things to it, but the original backlog projects, in fact, we brought a report back showing how we were making progress on them.
So that was the original reason, and that's okay. Now we're hearing because it's vacancies, all the vacancies. Do those jobs really impact having the City Hall open? I'm not sure. Maybe they do. I can't see it. I would like to know how. Not having a finance director affects having someone come in to do a building permit or to drop off a water bill. We have an assistant city manager who will supervise and can help supervise. We have the same amount of people basically in that office. And I understand that we lost staffing, but the staffing is not really there that we lost. It's someplace else. So I would be, you know, I would like a report as to why it is important to have those 3.5 hours every day that would make a big difference in your work. All the other cities around us are able to open 8 and 9 hours, and they have about the same amount of staff, maybe a little bit more, but somehow they're able to manage it. So I'm thinking that the reason we can't do it now is we don't have the structure correct to do that. Maybe we shouldn't have our finance people in the front counter. You know, maybe we should have other people in there. But it really does distress me that we keep changing the reason why we can't open up City Hall. And I would like a detailed report exactly how many people we've lost from 2009 to now, and exactly what the loss of the directors would have when we come back in 2015. I would do the 7:30 to 2:30. That sounds great, but you do have to catch people coming home too. So you know, so if you want to leave the hours like they are right now and come back in 2015, but I want a very precise reason. and I want it in writing, I want it in paper, I want to see the difference, because it's not making sense to me. I
Can I
can't wrap
chime
my
in here?
head around it.
Just to give you, I mean, we don't have data-rich studies here to take a look and figure out how to assign staff. I think only our managers really know how to do that. I just think that even if you're short on resources, you find a way to do it. You innovate, you cross-train, you bring people in and bring them in shifts. I don't know. I see my wife has been a teacher since 1986, and the Einsteins in charge of Los Angeles Unified School District decided to have breakfast in the classroom for all the students in that district, which means now the teachers have to use 30 minutes of their instructional time essentially as glorified waitresses. It's not good for the education. It's making her particular school roach infested. But you know what? Those teachers have found a way to do it, and they haven't had a raise in 7 years. So I see this in the private sector. I don't know if other cities have done these kinds of things, but look, we are stretched. Our resources are stretched to the limit, and it's a very unusual time, and I think we need to just realize that. The public's expectations are valid. They're the bosses. It's a democracy, and I will certainly accept the mayor's compromise proposal, but I'm not going to lose any, I'm not going to reduce my strength of thought on this. I really do believe there's a very symbolic issue at stake here. I think we're trying to build credibility for our government. I think we've had some stumbling in the last year or two, particularly with the water issue, and I think little things like this would make a big difference.
I just wanted to take Mr. Gold's recommendation even a step further and just to tie it in with the mayor's. And I don't even know if it'd be more confusing for the residents, but, and just like Councilmember Delmar was saying too, is we want to make sure that we're open early in the morning for some residents and later in the evening for others. And again, I don't know if it'd be more confusing for the residents, but is there a way to look at a Monday, Wednesday, early morning, 7:30 to 2:30, and then a Tuesday, Thursday? And again, this would be temporary until January, to where we can reconsider. But I think for the total amount of hours that we're open, it makes sense to, I think that's something that's within our control. It doesn't hurt our budget. And again, hopefully it meets the needs of some of our residents.
It's definitely something we could do. We could do 2 days a week early, 2 days a week the current schedule. You know, we would reschedule the staff appropriately. That wouldn't be a concern. That's doable.
Add that I know that the staff works really hard, and maybe I'm just hypersensitive about this. You know, my particular job, we've gone from 73 people to 42 in a year, and we haven't reduced any of our services, we haven't reduced any of our workload, but somehow we've all kind of adapted to it, you know, and so that's why I'm having a really hard time. At some point, you might have to not do things like you've always done them, and you have to think out of the box. So I really need to have something that I can say why.
No, I understand, and if I could just, say just a few things. I think there's a couple of factors that we've all forgotten. One of them is that this city hall and the city departments have never been staffed at even remotely an efficient, appropriate, the right number of staffing. This city just has a long history of being very conservative and always operating with a minimal amount of staffing. So this isn't a situation where at some point in time we started off with the right number of staffing and reduce. This is a situation where we started off with minimal staffing to begin with, and then reduced from that. I think what that has resulted in, you know, I listened to the speaker. It doesn't save money. Our current schedule doesn't save money. The current schedule is a result of, over time, a long period of time, not having the appropriate number of staff hours in each of our departments to keep priority projects on time. So it wasn't like 2 people were lost in administration, and that resulted in the schedule. It's a cumulative effect over 10 years of continually reducing staffing and realizing we started off at not the highest level of staffing to begin with. And staff does an amazing job in getting the priorities done. It did come to a period of time where there was a backlog of projects, council priorities that weren't getting done. We went to this schedule. This current schedule has allowed us, I can't think of a single thing periodically, maybe one thing here or there, that hasn't been done when the council wants it done. And we've been able to meet those council deadlines because of the current staffing that we have. But ultimately, I've always said this, ultimately, the council decides where the resources are. There are ways, it's a zero-sum game. We can get the staffing up at the front counter, but that's gonna mean taking staffing from somewhere else. It's a zero-sum game. We can come back with those alternatives, but, you know, somebody will, there's a winner and there's a loser. Opening City Hall, it's not just a simple matter of people coming in to just pay their water bills. You know, every other person that comes in, it isn't just paying a water bill, it's needing a director's time or a planner's time or an assistant director's time. You know, if it was just a situation of just the finance counter, you know, if we could come up with, we'll just take water bills and do the water bills and the yard sale permits, and that's all we do, 7:30 to, you know, full day. We could go back to that, but I think we'd have more disgruntled customers when they say, well, I want to meet with the director, or I want to meet with the city manager. So it's not just the impact on having enough people at the front counter, it's also the impact that's on the managers in the organization doing the work because we're open the more hours. And we're here to serve the public. And I guess that's a long way of saying, I think we need to remember we didn't start off from a base of having enough employees. We started off from a base of not having enough. This isn't done for cost savings, and it wasn't the result of just 1 or 2 positions that got reduced in admin services. It's a cumulative effect over a long period of time, and figuring out how can we keep the council's priority projects done on time and not have slip deadlines and not have details fall through the cracks. I think Councilmember Goss, you said it, I wish I would have written down the words. We can open up, but there's going to be something slipping on the back end. And ultimately, you know, ultimately it is a council policy direction on what hours we're open to the public.
Yeah, well, I would still like a report. Maybe call around the other cities and see how they do it. Because it's really, I'm having a really hard time wrapping my head around this. And I usually can figure out.
Other cities do, we've shown the numbers, they have more staffing. We have showed contract cities that have more staffing than we do. We've shown those figures.
Do they have
We
more
really
people?
do have fewer people than any other comparable city our size. We have fewer people than some contract cities next door to us. It's just, we operate very lean around here.
I don't dispute that, and I'm the first to point out that we are operating on less than a shoestring. The public has been very clear that they want a lot of things done. In addition to the service level we are maintaining now, they want to have a very aggressive policy on new development. And I think there's a consensus here that we're in support of that. But that's going to take a lot of staff time that we haven't budgeted. I get all that. I guess what I'm simply saying is I'm again willing to go with the mayor's compromise here, or wait to January if we have to. But it just seems to me that everyone here is underestimating the importance of this issue to people. This is the kind of thing that people cuss and moan about, and you don't want that. In a community, you want to have some kind of positive vibe going, and this is something that generates a negative vibe.
Right, and we don't underestimate it. We've mentioned, and again, you said it perfectly. We can open back up again, but there's going to be things that slip at the back end. It's a zero-sum game.
And I'd just like to say too is, Councilmember Goss, you're making a very convincing argument. From my point of view, and I don't think this is just my view of what our role here is, I really don't feel the urge to micromanage what the city manager does. We hire her to manage her staff. So if she's saying that there is an impact of all the things that we're asking her and her staff to do, if there is an impact, I'll respect that. But at the same time, what I'm saying about us sitting right here is we are all reluctant to say where that extra head count should come from. You're making an assumption that it's there and that she can figure out to do this. I'm not willing to go so far as to make that assumption. I mean, we hire her to be the city manager. She's the CEO of our city. We are the board of directors. So, I just challenge my peers. If this is so important, what can you suggest that we cut? I mean, do we take a head count out of recreation? Do we take a head count out of the library? We have to face that, and the public has to face it too. If it is that important, then maybe we should just get it done and between now and then, figure out a way. If you have ideas, give the city manager the ideas if we're inclined to dig that deep into the operation of the city. Otherwise, I guess I'm saying I'm willing to agree with Councilmember Goss at this time that this is really important. And if we should do it, we should just tell the city manager just to do it and then tell us what the impact is going to be. And I'm good with that too.
I'm kind of agreeing. And I do know that she's the manager, but when I do the historical look at all this, there's too many different pieces. I need to know exactly at this point in time what the impact is going to be. You tell me what projects are going to go away, what the difference is between now and 5 years ago that is really going to impact us opening up City Hall hours again. So, I'm really uncomfortable with the information I'm getting. And yes, our city manager is our CEO, but as the board of directors, sometimes when we question, we need to get specifics from.
Why don't we just have her do it and suffer the consequences? I mean, I really don't want to see a report, and a report's going to take her more time to compile, number one. But I mean, really, if it's that important to us, why don't we just give her the direction to open the hours, agree what hours we want it open, and figure it out, because personally, that's what I keep saying. We're paying you to figure that out. I don't want to figure it out myself.
So I disagree with just making the immediate change. I think, we've been talking about this for a few months. We have to be very strategic in our approach. With that being said, if the priority is to open up City Hall January 1st, that's what you're going to do. We have to prepare for it, but we're also going to know by that time which positions we will have to eliminate, what kind of restructuring. So there are a lot of things I think that need to go into place before making just a drastic change. Again, not minimizing what the public wants, but we also can't just be reactive and just make these changes without thinking about how it affects the rest of the structure and the rest of the flow of work. So
Can I ask a question
Sure.
of you? Are you proposing that we give the city manager the direction to figure out a way to get the hours open, but do it in January to give her
Yes.
more time and more of us? Because
I'd be comfortable with that, to say that it
Okay.
sounds like that meets the needs of some of the council members' wants at this point. But again, to at least give some leeway time to think about how it will impact as opposed to making the change right away.
Okay, I'd go along with that.
I would too. I just think that we need to do it, and I feel like we're stalling, and I'm not getting the right answers that we need. I'm not getting the information that I can make a judgment to say, yes, we need to keep the city hall closed. We need to open it up, and you need just to find a way to do it, and by January 1st would be a good time.
And I just want to add one piece to that. So if we do take that route, then I would rescind the recommendation of changing Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, because it's just too much of a mess. So if we just strive for the goal January 1st, if that's the date that we.
And I want people in here on New Year's Day working. Absolutely.
Right. 7:30 to 5:30.
Second, we open on the 2nd.
All right.
Okay.
What we're essentially
It'll be
doing
January
here
2nd.
is prioritizing and saying that this is a really high priority, and we are willing to suffer in some other fashion so that this can happen.
You're making an assumption that we're going to suffer.
Well, you are absolutely correct about
resources.
that. I am making an assumption because
Right.
I really don't believe that our city is operating really inefficiently, and by shuffling the deck that we're going to all of a sudden be way more efficient. I don't believe that. I understand that you might think that, but I don't. So I'm just saying that this is a probable outcome, is that something's going to fall off the back end. I hope you're right, Councilmember Delmar. I really do. But again, if it's our priority, then we should just state it, give it as a goal to the city manager, and just get it done and tell us what's bad
What it
things
takes
are
to
going to
do that.
happen. Is that okay?
Councilmember Goss, you good?
Yeah, you want to start January 1st?
January 2nd, technically speaking.
Look, I'm a reasonable guy. I'm willing to compromise on this. But you know what? I'm not so sure the public will. I don't think if they're hearing that we're going to do this by January, I think that's good. But it's better than not doing it at all. I think we can. My preference would be to get it, maybe by November, but I think I can support this.
And I can too. And I think there's a lesson to be learned, which is I will sit back and let you guys figure it out. While I literally just sat back and listened to you talk for 10 minutes, and we have a solution now. So well done. And I'm going to tag along and agree that this is probably the best thing. The best course of action right now is to give direction to get City Hall back open full-time as of January 2nd. And I think, we are going to be bringing back, and I'm going to be recommending that we bring back the reorganization talk. And I think that's going to play in nicely with this. And I think we'll have the budget somewhat sorted out by then. So I think the timing works. And I don't think anyone said anything up here that that was wrong. And
Will we bring the reorganization back prior to January?
I would like to. Yeah, I would like to probably bring
Before January.
Yeah, before January. So
We'll reconvene the subcommittee and get working on it again.
or do we want the same subcommittee? Are you guys, is that? I don't mind. Okay.
I'm fine with it.
Well, with that, I'll entertain a motion then to give staff direction. I think direction's been given, but do you,
Mayor, can I just add in, can we just make it the 5th because that's a Monday?
sure, January 5th.
January 2nd is a Friday.
Perfect. And do you need a motion, Madam City Manager? Or?
Closed. We're working, though. We're here working that day. No, we have direction.
All right.
We understand.
Thank you very much. Good job, everyone is right. It is 9 o'clock, and I should probably give everyone a break, huh? Does everyone want a break, or do we want to push through the final two?
I'm ready to push through, but
All right, well, let's push through, and please stand up and, yeah, that's right. Danny, item number 6, consideration to conduct a survey of historic resources.
Good evening, Mayor Herbidian, members of the council. Mayor Pro Tem Capocha requested to agendize a discussion to consider conducting a survey of historic resources to assess historic and potentially historic properties in Sierra Madre. Sierra Madre currently has 49 properties on the local historic register. The city's historic preservation ordinance currently protects the 49 local historic landmarks, includes the benefits of designation, such as the participation in the Mills Act program and the 50% reduced permit fees, among others, and provides the criteria for designation of properties and the procedures for alteration, restoration, rehabilitation, and remodeling of local historic landmarks. Sierra Madre does not have a citywide survey of historic resources. One of the challenges for staff, the Planning Commission, and the City Council in their review of a nomination application is that there is no study or historic assessment completed on behalf of the city to be used as a basis for recommending nomination of a property. The burden is on the applicant to provide sufficient information as part of their nomination, and the practice in Sierra Madre has been that the applicant hire a qualified architectural historian to provide the analysis necessary to consider a project eligible or worthy of designation. This information is helpful to staff and the Planning Commission and the City Council, but it doesn't reference a survey completed on behalf of the city, as it would provide a comprehensive citywide evaluation and ensures objective, unbiased analysis. The historic resources surveys are performed to identify, record, and evaluate historic properties within a community. Surveys provide information needed to make informed planning decisions, prioritize preservation goals and objectives, and perform environmental review, develop adaptive reuse initiatives, educate the public, and increase the understanding of and appreciation for the built environment as a tangible reminder of the community's history. It also assists in identifying resources that are worthy of designation, whether it be at the local, the state, or the national level, as well as federal tax benefits that are also provided or available. The cost of a qualified historic consultant to conduct a citywide historic survey can range from $30,000 to $50,000. We've identified throughout the years goals, objectives, and policies in Sierra Madre related to historic preservation. The 1996 general plan includes a historic preservation section. One of those goals is to complete and utilize a comprehensive survey of Sierra Madre's significant historic resources. We also have in the general plan update, the 2015 general plan update, which is also consistent with water conservation policies, identified by council, the retention of existing historic homes and structures. I'll read this. The retention of existing historic homes and structures limit redevelopment and reconstruction that would otherwise maximize building floor area, creating a greater demand on the city's water resources and its ability to serve its customers. Also, there are policies that are included in the historic preservation section of the new general plan, the update, and one of them is L39.1. It says, complete and utilize a comprehensive survey of Sierra Madre's significant historic resources according to the guidelines from the State Office of Historic Preservation. Also, L39.3, create a list of potential historic resources, those identified by the comprehensive survey, for special consideration under CEQA to the extent that they would otherwise be exempt. So your alternatives are to authorize a city manager or her designee to prepare an RFP, a request for proposals to qualified historic architectural preservation consultants to conduct a formal historic resources survey. Alternative 2, do not prepare an RFP at this time. Or number 3, continue this item and request additional information. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Castro. Any questions?
I would just add, council members, that we're not awarding anything this evening. We would really just like the authorization to get some bids and see what this will cost.
Questions?
If we had a complete list of historical properties and, documented list, does that create a higher threshold than for allowing, say, redevelopment of a site?
It does, in the sense that potential historic properties or eligible historic properties are identified. It doesn't automatically make them historic by our local register or California or national, but it does present a higher criteria if in fact there was a threat of demolition or a threat of substantial remodel.
Yeah. Okay, because, I try to think of the home on Oak Tree that we just did, the Mills Act approval for that.
Right.
I mean, what's the fellow's name again? Brian?
Abernathy.
Abernathy,
Brian Abernathy.
yeah. He stated that the owner of that property, even though that house was not on the historic register, we didn't have all the documentation, I suppose, because he hired an architect to gather that. But the owner of that house fortunately took less money to sell it to somebody like Mr. Abernathy to keep it, preserve it. And I just keep thinking we're just dodging bullet after bullet, by not having this. And can I just ask you also to read the paragraph about Beverly Hills? You skipped that, I know in the interest of time, but I think that's really important.
Yeah, it was interesting in 2008 when the LA Conservancy presented their report card, and this is something they published in the LA Times. They took the 88 cities within LA County and graded them based on their historic preservation efforts. And Sierra Madre received a C+ grade. I think I'm going back to, and we then received in 2014. They waited 6 years before they did another report card. We received a C grade.
We lost our plus.
The city of Beverly Hills in 2008 received an F grade, and I just use it for comparison. Sierra Madre, we were much better off than, and in fact, getting a C. When we received that 2008 C grade, I was actually letting people know as they came to and talked to me about that. Residents of Sierra Madre, I said that's not a bad thing because actually the majority of cities, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, received F or Ds, and there were just a few that were C, Bs, and As. Many cities just didn't have any historic preservation program. But Beverly Hills received an F grade. Since then, there were some homes that were threatened by demolition. They were built by noteworthy architects. They were also homes of historic or architectural or cultural significance, and they weren't happy with that F grade. So since then, after 2008, they established a commission, they established an ordinance or adopted an ordinance, and they dramatically changed their grade to an A+ in the 2014 report card. So I know that when the 2008 report initially came out for Sierra Madre, there was concerns, and even the General Plan Steering Committee, identified potential policies and goals that would help improve our grade.
And Director Castro, just out of curiosity, do you remember any other A's, cities that received A's, just to put it in perspective?
Long Beach, Pasadena, Santa Monica, I think Monrovia also has a very strong historic preservation program.
Okay.
West Hollywood, Claremont does, yeah, that's true.
South Pasadena.
Oh, South Pass.
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
there's a sprinkling of them, but not a lot.
Good.
And again, the report card is available. I have it in the staff report, the
Right in.
website for it. But you'll see the criteria, and a lot of it is they did a grading system based on whether there's a commission that's devoted. While we do have one, it's the Planning Commission, but they base it on a criteria that you have a historic preservation commission separate, and that whether we have a survey or not, whether we have any districts identified, whether we participate in the Mills Act, which we do. So a lot of it we did meet the criteria, but there were just a few things that brought us down to a C grade.
Director Castro, when are they going to do the next report card?
Well, it took 6 years to do the last one, and I think that they probably won't do one, I don't think, for at least 3 more years.
So we have time to up our grade.
Be better students.
And in a way, it was, I like to think of it as they're an advocacy group. They don't represent us or anything, I mean, they kind of call us out is what they're doing.
Director Castro, what do they call us out on?
Well, they called us out on not having a survey, historic resources survey, that we don't have an established commission. We did have one, and as you know, it was disbanded in early 2000, somewhere, 2000 something. We don't have any established districts. I have told them that I am the city's person that's designated to review and oversee the historic preservation program. And they said, well, you're the director, you should be anyway. And I think we lost some points on the fact that we don't have an identified planner that has some historic background that can oversee the program.
Does any of it go to how many properties are actually listed with some kind of historical significance? Are they doing a numbers game at all?
No, not necessarily, just that we have some on our local historic. The other one thing that I just remembered is they also give you points if you don't require the owner's consent. Our ordinance requires that.
We've been down that road before.
You cannot go through a nomination unless the owner is consenting to the nomination application. But and there are cities that don't have, they're similar to our cities where if you don't have an owner's consent, you can't move a project application forward.
Director Castro, I'm sure this is something that everyone has in the back of their minds. There is a cost to this, and I do think that the historic survey is something that we called out in the general plan back in '96 and in the update, and it's something that we should do. Is there any way that you could see doing this without, and I know the city manager hates when we do this, but is there any way you could do this through a volunteer commission, committee? I'm sure that we have, I'm not sure, but maybe we have some qualified historians in town that might be able to do this. I mean, I took a look at the other surveys. It's work. It's definitely work. It seems like a lot of man hours, woman hours, but
The quick answer is we can always do it that way. The long answer is it just take a long time on top of everything else. And I think this is probably something we should move forward quicker rather than later.
I think it's also just to have the qualified, just the good backing to ensure that we have one that's really calls to the expertise of historians.
And that doesn't mean, we would put together what we're looking for, what we need done, and if there's a local person
Yeah.
who gives us a really good price on it, we've got two birds with one
Yeah,
stone.
because I have a feeling that we might find one in Sierra Madre. A person like that, or
And
in
they'd
South
probably give us a
Pasadena or-
really good price because they're local.
Yeah.
And they
I'd
know
like
the
to see
community
too,
very
I mean,
well.
our housing stock, it's not just housing, it's also commercial properties, but, relatively, we have a lesser number than some of our neighboring cities where,
Yeah.
we could.
Lesser number of what?
Lesser number of built structures that survey would entail, doing a.
So you think
You think there are potentially more? There's a good number that would be.
Absolutely.
And
think the
we're talking
49
about what, Mills Act qualified type property?
They would be eligible for Mills Act if they were on our local list. It doesn't mean when you have a historic property that you can't make changes. You can make changes. It just requires you to go through the planning commission and, meet criteria. That doesn't take away from the integrity of the historic property.
Thank you.
And, you've seen properties that have gone through this through the planning commission and sometimes to the council when it's a nomination.
Thank you, Director Castro. I'll open this up for public comment. Questions?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. It's been a long wait to get.
Oh,
and
sorry.
members of the City Council, thank you. My name is Patricia Karamitros. I live at 140 East Allegria, and that's the Halloween Street, if you know it. Coming up soon. I've lived in Sierra Madre since 1968, and my current resident since 1972. And I'm here to ask the council to support this historic resources survey. I know it's a priority item as far as cost is concerned, but I think we really need to do it. All of the new council members were elected on the promise of preserving the historic character of the city, and one of the tenets of their general plan is to preserve and sustain Sierra Madre's distinctive character as a historic small town, and I don't believe we can do that unless there is actual credentialed documentation about exactly what we have that is historic. No one can argue that for the past few years the city has been under attack by developers. The house next door to me at 124 recently went on the market. I believe it was built in 1912. That's what it says on the prospectus for the realtors. In the past week, I personally have received 3 letters asking me to sell my house for cash as is right now.
Wow.
I have 2 of them here with me if you would like to see show and tell.
Wow.
The house next to me is 100 by 205. My house is 85 by 205. If both properties were sold to a single buyer, that buyer would have 37,925 square feet of land to repurpose, because none of us are designated historic. This evening I spoke to the neighbor on the other side, and they also have been approached by buyers for cash immediately, and that would add another 10,250 square feet to the total, which if we're R1 residences, it would make 8 more properties or 8 more houses on that amount of square footage. I believe a historic record would help prevent that from happening. The original mayor's house, Mayor Jones, is on East Allegria, and many other houses are historic. A survey does not mean, as the previous gentleman said, that individual property rights would be taken away from owners. No one is dictating house color or roof material. A survey is a record of when our houses were built, and probably if they were architecturally significant. We have green and green properties in Sierra Madre. We have at least one by a mid-century modernist, Harold Hamilton Harris. If we were to follow Pasadena's lead in designating landmark districts, we would only be asking that fronts of houses remain intact, interiors could be upgraded, footage could be added, but old houses would not be demolished to be replaced by what I would consider architecturally hideous McMansions. It would appear to me that the only way that the newly elected council members can show that they really meant what they said in their bid for election is that they support this. historical survey at whatever cost, because in fact it would document the actual history of the town and help us all to fight the development that the majority here wants to preserve. Or prevent, pardon me, we don't want to preserve development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Can we get copies of those letters? I'm curious.
Yes, especially if there's a purchase price in there.
I like that.
Ms. Brown.
Caroline Brown, I was glad to hear that Claremont has kept its high standards because they have a very strong cultural heritage and preservation ethic in Claremont. In fact, when we first started our general plan update, a man in town who has actually worked on the governor's mansion and some other historical properties around told me that Claremont had just updated 2 elements in its city plan, the open space element and the historical element. And I went out and City Hall gave me a CD of the 2 pieces of their project. One of the things that I think is interesting about this is the pressure that is on land, and I'm just going to well, in terms of the people that were so adamant about having their houses listed and created a great deal of concern and perhaps the press behind removing the Planning Commission some years ago, I think what has changed is there's always a tipping point where things seem to be fine and dandy, then all of a sudden you look around and think, oh my God, another house torn down. Oh my God, another community change like that. And so the sensibility, I think, is more toward preservation than it might have been across the board when that Cultural Heritage Commission sort of met its demise. I want to just point out something to you from the standpoint of land pressures that are actually from open space issues. So if it's happening there, I can imagine it's happening anywhere. I got a call from Director Inman if I could come down, please, and let him know the conservation easement over a piece of property in Sierra Madre right above the Chantry Flat Gate. And I said, sure, what's going on? So I got down here and he showed me a development plan that somebody had for the property that they had purchased actually in Arcadia at the hairpin turn, but there's no access to it from the Arcadia line. Straight up and down, they'd have to have a helicopter to get to it. Okay, but what they did instead was decide that maybe they could get a driveway across Sierra Madre's property and up to their property in Arcadia. And it was, of course, through Sierra Madre's open space with the conservation easement. So I said, sure, I'll be right down with the conservation easement so you'll have it in your hand should they show up. And he showed me what this was, and it was kind of like, oh my God, who did that on a piece of flat paper and thought anybody in Sierra Madre would approve it? And I went on my way, and then I thought by the end of the day, Arcadia's planning department is still open. I'm going to show up down at Arcadia and ask them if this had come to them. And they looked at, I had the APMs, and they said, no, nobody's come down here with any kind of plan like that. And why would Sierra Madre let anybody drive across their open space to get to a lot in Arcadia? And I said, we wouldn't. And she said, I sure hope not. So later on, I looked it up, and I found out how much that piece of property sold for. It sold for $6,000. 2 lots in the hillside, view lots in Arcadia for $6,000. Somebody sight unseen said, wow, I can't miss. Let me spend my $6,000 as fast as I can. And then found out they had no access to it. So people will be doing all kinds of plotting and scheming and things of ways in which they can maximize properties. And I think Sierra Madre doesn't want to see that happen. So I approve this approach and fast as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. I think the most shocking thing about one of those letters was that it was signed by John Capocha. I think, to me that was a little startling, but other than that.
Cash offer.
That's right.
Barbara Lee, I approve, but not until after the January date that we were listening to earlier in the evening, that the council has priorities and council deadlines. And so I say table this until January when the city has more time to take a look and also to look at our budget and see what we have, what we do have to spend. But I am all for preservation. I've lived in quite a few of the historical houses around Sierra Madre. A quick mention of the Mills Act when the group was had a lot of energy and went about things. And we really should take our time and really research and do things methodically, because inadvertently, and not in a menacing way, they listed all the historical houses without permission from the owners. And it cost a lot of money for each individual to submit back up to Sacramento to take them off the Mills Act, and that caused a lot of trouble in town. So I think volunteers, and I think homeowners that have historical houses, because a lot of them have been lost, a lot of them had been added onto, so they're not really historical, just facades. But I think submitting the information and putting it into City Hall is a good start. But I think spending $30,000 at this point, and after hearing for about a half an hour how backlogged the city still is until January 20th or whatever, January 5th, I think go ahead and put this off until we have everything in the city re-looking at what was planned for redistributing all of the employees, and work all that out before you jump in with anything else. And please, hopefully tonight, you're also gonna not table anything to be on the agenda, since we have so much work to get done before the January deadline. Thanks.
Thank you, Barbara Lee. Any other questions or comments? All right, we'll bring it back. Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to start?
Well, I think Mrs. Karamitris hit the nail on the head there. I mean, it's just obvious. She showed you the data. We are under a threat. This threat did not exist a couple years ago, but there's a lot of money being pushed around, and these developers come in, and they're not sensitive to our city's culture or heritage. And again, I can't blame them. They're looking to make a good, fast buck. And if our laws allow it, then we're all guilty for not putting something in place to do something about it. So I think just the fact that we have a C+ rating is a red flag in itself. And especially since Sierra Madre is such a desirable place to live, I believe we can't act on this fast enough. And as you can see, it is consistent with the people. They want it. It's in the general plan in several places. We need to move and move fast. And all we're doing tonight is just asking the city manager to just get some bids for us. And we can debate later, whether we want to spend the money or not. But to delay this, I think, would be just shameful.
Thank you. Council members?
Just very concisely say I'm supportive of at least putting the RFP out, putting the RFP together and putting it out to bid, seeing what kind of response we have. No question that this is another priority in our town and with our residents. And again, just like Mayor Pro Tem stated, this is part of the strategic plan of our city. So I am all for putting out the RFP for it.
I actually think we'll be negligent if we didn't start looking at the RFP, see what it's going to cost us. But this is one step in heading towards preservation of our older homes that we absolutely need to do here in Sierra Madre. So I support the RFP process.
I support it too. I think I agree with the Mayor Pro Tem's comments on it. I think Barbara Lee made a good point, though. This is, $20,000, $30,000, okay, we're going to have to find it somewhere. And, my mom used to tell me, Gene, there's only so much blood in a turnip. And so a lot of the people who are concerned about preservation were also concerned that the UUT not be extended. And so as we're looking at shortfalls, not everybody did. There were plenty of people who were mixed matched on both those issues. But we have to spend money to govern the city. This is a priority, I think, for everybody up here. Eventually, I'm guessing we'll find the money for this. But I think we all need to take a deep breath and realize that we've got some big time budget issues coming, and we're not acting like it right now. We're still acting like, the money's going to be there just the way it was last year.
Yeah, I'm in favor of it as well, and I'll echo Councilmember Goss's, concerns about the budget. That was my only concern, was the price tag, but I do think that we should get the RFP out and hopefully get a proposal that's cheaper than we expect. I don't want to micromanage the RFP, but do we put a price range in there, or do we? No? Okay. Well, let's hide this this report. It says 30 to 50,000, and hopefully we get something around 15 or 20. But I'm in favor of going with the RFP.
The only time it's listed in there is when it's in budgeted item, and then
Okay.
they can look at our budget and see it, but this isn't a budgeted item, so we wouldn't have to, it wouldn't be public.
But I thank the Mayor Pro Tem for bringing this to us, and I do think that, we do have to be concerned with our budget. This is obviously a priority and something that we should have been doing. It's funny, I've talked to a few folks about this when it was agendized, and a lot of folks already think we have this. A lot of people already just assume that this already got done, and so I think it's about time we do it. So I'm in favor of it.
And this thing actually ticks off, mentioning staff workload. This is already one of the items on your list of 40 items, as is the next item up on the agenda. So we're actually, slowly but surely getting through the 40 more water moratorium. It's also on our general plan. And so we can check off a few more things as being in process.
Great. Do you need a motion, or you have the?
We have.
You have direction.
We have direction.
We'll move on to item number 7. And Director Castro, consideration of gray water stub outs for all new single-family residential construction.
Thank you again. In previous meetings, the council discussed gray water systems and how it can apply to new residential construction and ways to promote the installation of gray water, new and existing homes. In order to promote gray water, council did adopt a resolution that provides a 30% reduction of plan check fees and permit fees for the installation of gray water. We've also advertised that. We put that in the Wisteria Vine. We've put it in e-blasts, and we included e-blast in the summer 2014 Wisteria Vine. The implementation of a gray water ordinance is listed as one of the water conservation priorities to be done while the water moratorium is in place. What is a gray water system? Well, first of all, currently, a homeowner or new residential development can install gray water. It currently is voluntary. We have the plumbing code that allows for it, but it's voluntary, not required. What is a gray water stub out? It's described as, the main difference between an ordinary plumbing system and a system designed for gray water is that the eligible gray water fixture or fixtures are plumbed separately to the outside of the building. This separate drain is the gray water stub out. Staff found 2 cities that have implemented gray water stub out requirements for all new single-family residential construction. One was the city of Chula Vista. They adopted an ordinance and also amended their building code to require that, quote unquote, all new detached single-family dwellings and duplexes shall include a single-source closed washer gray water outlet and an outside stub out to allow the later installation of a closed washer gray water system. This requirement is limited in Chula Vista to the closed washer water to then be redirected to the yard area of a property. The city of Tucson was another city we found that had a good ordinance. They amended also their building code to require a stub out for a closed washer and also a segregated drain system for all other plumbing fixtures. That would be the sinks, showers, and bathtubs for a more comprehensive gray water system. I did talk to our building official. Upon new construction, it's not a complicated system to install, especially when you do it at the front end, and at a nominal cost at the time of construction. The ordinances from Chula Vista and Tucson only require installation of stub outs for the later installation. It doesn't require that a gray water system be utilized. According to Tucson, installation of stub outs at the time of construction greatly facilitates the use of gray water in residences. So a question is whether the council, should they wish to go forward with an ordinance, is whether they wish that when you have a gray water stub out requirement, do you want to require that they utilize the system, or that it's just available for future use should they want to utilize it. I think that concludes my report. We're seeking the council's direction on preparing a draft ordinance and a building code amendment to require the installation of gray water stub outs for all new single-family residential construction.
Thank you, Director Castro. Any questions?
Just a quick thought entered my mind. Is it possible if someone actually installed the gray water system that they maybe get a credit for replenishing our aquifer? Is that something we can look at down the line?
Yeah, I mean, it could be.
That would be utilization though, right? Not just installing. But
They'd have to actually
they'd have
use
to
it,
actually
yeah.
be putting
Well, that's a
water
good
in the
point.
ground. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Incentive-based.
That might be the reason I'm asking, that might be the incentive to get them to actually use what we required them to, the stub out, you know?
That is, we could, we could fit that in or craft that into an ordinance.
Well, you'll be in Sausalito by then, so don't give us this "we will" stuff, all right? Kidding. Any other questions? All right, we will open this up for public comment.
Hi, Barbara Lee. Danny, is there any update on what the California Municipal Code is requiring? I know it's coming up within this year, 2015, for gray water requirements. I like the Tucson, and I think it should be required moving forward for the state of California with all the new building. And no, I would not give any kind of discounts. In fact, I'd recall the discounts for after the water moratorium's over, because we're gonna need the money. But I believe, well, I know that the state of California is making this a requirement, so you're gonna be seeing this coming before you. So we're kind of getting ahead, which is nice. We're ahead of Sacramento just a little bit. And I also, I could be corrected, but we can't merge two properties as far as historical tearing down a house. We can't merge two properties under one developer to develop a large space. That's, I forgot to include that number 6. So I just, anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Barbara Lee. And I think that is going to be it on public comment. We'll bring it back. Anyone like to start on this?
You want me to?
Go ahead.
I can go.
Yes.
Councilmember
Councilmember Del Mar.
We do need an ordinance for this. I'm not comfortable with insisting on the utilization, perhaps a discount or a credit if you do use it, but certainly crafting an ordinance to require the installation.
I'm sorry, you are against that?
No, I would like that.
That we'd actually require?
I don't want to require utilization.
Okay, good, I just wanted.
But installation, an installation for new construction.
I'm in favor of requiring the stub outs. The question where I'm a little unsure at this point is whether to do it for, there's two levels of gray water. Kitchens and something else is considered a more serious one. I'm not sure we'd want to go that far, but I'm thinking that it would be practical to require the stub out for the sinks, showers, and bathtubs, and also for the laundry. And then that would be adequate.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, I support that as well. I think that if we are ahead of Sacramento, great. If we're not, I don't care. We need to do this. I think it's going to be a great way to get to this water issue for us over the long term.
Did we say anything about existing construction on this? No.
No.
This is all new construction, correct? Okay.
Correct.
Well, yeah, that's a really good point,
Or
though. What if it was a
existing-
full remodel?
You could give us direction to include,
Put in if it's 50% or greater, then it would warrant that,
Right.
but it does get a lot more complicated when you're taking an existing home and having to
Right.
tear up the foundation or the walls. But if it's 50%, 75% or greater of a remodel, you could require it.
Or how about just require it for an area that you're remodeling? If you're remodeling the plumbing where you have the washer and you require it there. If you're doing a bathroom remodel, you require the stub out there, but I can see what you're saying on a slab, that might be a little challenging, huh?
Yeah, well, I was going to say if I'm understanding correctly, I just I like the idea of it, but I'd want it to focus just on new construction. I don't like the idea of requiring it. And then also the two levels, and again, maybe I need more information about it, but I guess it would be the requirement for new construction for the first level, and then the second level, I'm not.
The kitchens, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Second tier.
The second tier?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if we want to go there.
Yeah,
you know.
I
think the kitchens
don't think
are.
I do either, so.
There's too much solids and stuff
Yeah.
like
In
that.
kitchen,
yeah.
yeah.
Some of these reports were,
So
it's just a little more intricate.
Yeah, so the new construction, not requiring not requiring utilization, and then just the first tier is what I'd be in support for.
And I'm on board with that as well. And, you know, I almost wear this as a badge of pride that we're one of only now, I guess, 3 cities that are going to be requiring this. And I think that Sierra Madre has been on the forefront of this water issue, and it goes in line with the moratorium and everything else that we're doing. So I think that this is just the way of the future, and the fact that we're doing it now at this early stage just shows that we're on top of it. So I'm in full favor of this, and I think the direction that was given is perfect. So, anything else you need from us, or okay? That concludes our agendized items. I did give direction to bring back the reorg proposal. Any other items for future agendas? And with that, we can have a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, good night, everyone.